When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Warning, this podcast contains explicit language and spoilers. This is Behind the Iron Throne, your unofficial Game of Thrones cast.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, men and ladies, awesome people of the BTIT Army. Oh, yeah, hashtag BTIT. This is episode 164, The Spoils of War. This is a deeper inside look of the episode that we just recorded on Sunday for Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 4. Absolutely blown away. Can't wait to get to my panelists. So you know what, before we get to my panelists, I'm your host, Chris Gray. And this episode was recorded August, the 9th, 2017. And if you're not joining us live, you can join us live at facebook.com/Behind the Iron Throne. And if you forget any of the links that I mentioned or any of my co-hosts mentioned tonight, all you have to do is remember BehindTheIronThrone.com. Or please subscribe to the .tv. That's right, we have a YouTube channel, and we'd love to have you there. It's going to be a great show. Holy mackerel. But let's get to my Game of Thrones enthusiasts, because you don't want to hear me talk. You want to hear these guys talk. They're superstars in the Game of Thrones community. You know them, you love them. And if you don't, you're about to, and love them. Don't forget to throw your money at them on our Patreon. We have the one, the only, the militant marker, Yardley.
Hey, what's up? I'm doing good, man. Excited, and I'm ready to talk about this episode.
Very exciting. And, of course, we have the lovely and talented, the seductress of Game of Thrones and mistress. She is the one, the only, Andrea.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
It's good to have you. Andrea, real quick, where can people find you?
You can find me on social media all over the place at A_Richard637.
Awesome. And, of course, we have the amazing Jonathan Duckdarian, Lord of the Quackerjacks, King of the Wicker People. He's amazing. He's bald. And he's batshit crazy. John.
Lannister's on fire! What's up, Chris?
Wow, that hurts me. Right here in the cockles. Right in the cockles.
True.
It may be true, sir, but right here in the feels. Okay, next up we have the most amazing woman you would ever meet. I think she can fly because she sprouts dragon wings, or she uses magical words of power because she is a... What is it called again? Trin will tell us. Welcome, Trin.
Thank you. We're super excited to be here. I did a lot of research, so I'm hoping to give you guys some solutions, but I'm probably just going to make more questions. But you guys can follow me at Dovahkiin Trin on social medias.
I could see, my dear, on the back of a dragon, flying around, shooting people with fire. I could see that. Oh, that's pretty awesome. All right, so let's get right to it. We got a lot of content and a lot of stuff to talk about. Well, we're going to start at the beginning here. The Rose Road, right? Jaime, Bronn, Lannister army, delivering the spoils of Highgarden's victory to King's Landing. What's going on here, Yardley? What do you think, buddy?
But you have to think that he has some affinity to the Lannisters, because the guy who was just all in for himself would have probably broke out and left the battle to live to make some money another day. And he ended up staying. So I'm kind of conflicted of just saying that he'll jump on any bandwagon. I think that he's been with that family so long in some type of a crazy way. He feels like he has to see whatever it is through.
What a fantastic scene. Trin, what do you think about Bronn in this particular, in the beginning here?
He's the same old Bronn. He's been, I don't know. He's like, he's definitely not changed since the first time we saw him. I didn't do a whole lot of research on Bronn, so sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. How about you, John? What are you thinking here with Braun? What's going on with Braun and his loyalties?
I mean, he was all for the gold, and I think the reason that he continued to fight was because he wants more gold. I mean, if he runs away from the battle, he's not going to get paid. He's not going to get his castle. So that's kind of why he does that. But and I also think he is just he's been with that family for so long, whether it be Tyrion or Jaime. So I guess he has loyalties with the Lannisters.
Well, yes, and he's going to get paid big time, we hope. Andre, what do you think? What are your thoughts about this particular scene, this opening?
I really don't have much to say about this first scene, actually. It was pretty straightforward. I knew that the conversation about Bronn being owed a castle and Jaime's promises to pay him back was going to come up. I feel like that's going to be just more foreshadowing for what's going to happen with Tyene, whether she's dead or not at this point. But I don't think that there was anything special about this. I like how Jaime reminded Bronn that he just said he wanted Highgarden, and yet he feels like he has no talent for motivating farmers to work the fields. And it was kind of like a slap in the face. You just said you wanted Highgarden. Well, go and motivate your people if this is what you're going to be doing. And so Bronn had to kind of suck it up and go and do it. But other than that, I didn't think that there was anything really significant about this scene happening.
Yeah, good opening, however. Beautiful scenery, right? Absolutely gorgeous. The costume design is phenomenal. I love the music throughout this whole episode. We can talk about it more towards the end. But real quick, I just wanted to mention, Cody had said something in the chat here. He says he lost his gold, though. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And I just want to remind everybody that I'm still in the studio, satellite studio, not in my full studio, so the internet may be interrupted from time to time. I apologize. Just bear with us, and I will get the stream back up as quickly as I possibly can. Just a few more weeks, and I'll be in the new studio. Hopefully, it won't be finished, but I'll be able to have better internet, and it will be up and running, and it will hopefully be better than the satellite. But I have to thank my mother-in-law for letting me do this here. Okay, so let's move on to the next scene, because there wasn't much on that particular section in the chat. So let's go to King's Landing. Cersei and the Iron Bank. They're talking about payment of past debts and new adventures and all kinds of crazy stuff. I think Cersei is showing that she's a lot smarter than we initially believed, at least some of the other panelists. But I'm curious to know what you think about this, Yardley, and of course the Iron Bank.
Well, Cersei's totally showing that she belongs on the chessboard, and her conversation with Tycho Nestoris about their future relationship, which is contingent on the Iron Bank receiving their money with interest. We found out that Cersei was wanting to expand the army, and also was considering bringing sellswords like the Golden Company into the fold. Now, the relationship between the Lannisters and the Iron Bank at this particular point is palpable, but they have to produce. And as we find out later on in the episode, some things do break that way. But from what Tycho was essentially saying, it's a big achievement, to possibly be the first family to pay off all of their debts with interest in a lump sum. So I would be smiling too if I was the Iron Bank.
That's awesome. And a big shout out to you, Lord Bags. If you can't get your stream up, he tells me there's a pill for that. Somebody send me the pill quickly. So what's going on with Cersei? What does she want back? Trin, what are you thinking?
So I did do the research that I promised everybody that I was going to do, and I really didn't come up with anything specific about Cersei as far as what she wants back. But I did kind of go through some Cersei history, and honestly, I think she wants her cool-ass clothes back, because she had the best wardrobe in the entire series. I saw all these pictures of her wardrobe, and they were amazing. And now she's in this sort of like really somber, almost military uniform type dresses that she's been sporting this season. But on a real note, I did some research on the Golden Company and found out, I knew this, that they were founded by Blackfyre, specifically Aegor Rivers, who was Bittersteel. And they've never broken a contract. And it seems really strange right now to introduce them into the show without that background. because we don't have that background in the show as a casual show watcher, but you do if you're a book reader. So I thought that was really strange. Now that does line up the fact that they would be willing to go against a Targaryen because they're Blackfires. For people who don't know, the Blackfires are a branch that rebelled against the Targaryens. They were a Targaryen branch that got... Anyway, you'll look it up later. But they would be willing to support someone who was against a Targaryen because of their background. So I thought that was interesting, but other than that, I didn't really get anything that like Cersei's lost, as far as other than the Stark girls. That was something that I found that people sort of agreed that was something that Cersei lost that she wanted back.
Excellent points. Definitely cool. So, John, she did pay back the gold to the Iron Bank. What are your thoughts on the Golden Company and what's going on here?
She did pay back the gold, but I still don't trust the Iron Bank. And after the Field of Fire, I could see him changing his mind. I mean, he's got no obligation. He got back all the gold with interest. If they're bankers and they're into investing for the future, they're not, investing with Cersei would be a mistake because she's not losing, but I mean the dragon on the field changes the chess pieces, and maybe they might not support her after what happened there. I don't know if the Golden Company would accept a suicide mission. I mean, going over to Westeros knowing there's 3 dragons. I mean, you want to spend the money, going over there and possibly dying and not being able to spend your money. They might not accept the contract.
Okay, fair enough. Andrea, what are your thoughts on Cersei's strengths and the other thoughts you had on the scene?
Cersei's biggest strength right now is the fact that she's not emotionally invested in absolutely anything, which allows her to keep this really clear military mind moving forward. She's not making her decisions based off of emotions. She's making strategic decisions based on her lack of emotion. But she's really got herself in quite a pickle at the moment right now anyways. She wants to pay off the Iron Bank so that her rule is an uncontested one, or without any more drama from the Iron Bank, because they could make her life hell. And she wants to hire a sellsword company, which is arguably one of the most elite sellsword companies in the world. It's also one of the biggest sellsword companies in the known world. But she's fucked up right now. Everything that she took from Highgarden, the food, the money, everything like that, all she's got is the gold. I mean, she's kind of screwed. She can bring in a sellsword company, but how are you going to feed them? And how are you going to pay back the Iron Bank if you can't leave King's Landing?
Yeah, good points. Let's see. I think it's time for the chat room. What do we got going on in the chat room, Ms. Dovahkiin?
Okay, we've got Paula Ladd says, I think Cersei might be talking about using the Golden Company to get Casterly Rock back, but I hope she's not talking about Sansa. Doesn't Cersei think that both Sansa and Tyrion killed Joffrey? What do you guys think about those two options? Those are really good questions.
I think she's talking about property, not people.
So Casterly Rock, you would say maybe Casterly Rock would fit in with that?
I'm not specifically saying one place or another. I think she's talking about the Seven Kingdoms as a whole.
Okay. And then Eric says, what does Cersei want back? Casterly Rock, Tyrion, or Sansa? I think there's a theme. I've been reading this a lot on the internet, and some people have been saying, like, the Stark girls, Sansa, they have a beef.
Yeah, I can imagine she really wants Sansa.
John, did you want to answer that?
Sorry, going back to what you were saying about Sansa, Cersei won't go into the north. If you go back to season 1 when she's talking to Joffrey, she even says you can't take the north. A southern army can't go and take the north. She says it to Joffrey when Joffrey wanted to march an army into the north. It's too big, it's too far away, and winter is here. So I don't see her going to try to get Sansa. It'd be stupid.
Yeah, I remember that conversation. Good point, John. Almost forgot about that. All right, well, let's move on to Winterfell. Yay! One of the characters that I really liked, Littlefinger, although this season I feel like he's not doing as awesome as I liked in season past. He seems to be thirsting after Bran, and of course, Mira Reed seems to be running out of fucks to give. Oh. All right, Yarly, what are you thinking here with Littlefinger creeping on Bran?
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious that Littlefinger's honing in on Bran because he's the last true-born son of Ned Stark. So I think he kind of wanted to get his claws into him. And basically, he was putting into practice the things that he told Sansa in the previous episode. And when Bran pretty much was like, I'm not Lord Stark, that squashed that immediately. And we talked about this briefly in the last episode when Bran was making mention of if Littlefinger knew where the dagger came from. And I'm thinking that there's just a greater history that he was talking about. I don't necessarily think that he was asking Littlefinger to kind of out himself about the attempted murder of Bran.
Right, because he already knows. He is the knower and seer of all things. He's almost like the Alpha and the Omega. He is the three-eyed Raven. But, Trin, mind games. What are you thinking
Yeah.
here? Who is winning this mind game?
So I do think that there was a bit of mind games or some trickery or whatever. We all know Littlefinger's very mischievous and he loves chaos. But I think, was Bran asking for a name? Like, do you know who owned this before? And some other things that I came across in my research about this was every Valyrian blade has a name. And this is a Valyrian blade, but no one knows its name. And in the books, there's some missing, Valyrian blades here and there. Dark Sister's one of them, which could be a whole Arya thing. Dark Sister, Arya, he gives her the blade, whatever. I don't want to go down too far in that rabbit hole, but because we haven't been introduced in the show to Dark Sister. But it was a really cool reference, and it made me really think, okay, Bran was asking for a name, and he gave it to someone who is no one. So she's Arya Stark, of course, but she also goes by no one. And I don't think we saw in Sam's book any kind of name referenced for that blade or anything. So I just thought that was a really interesting mind game there.
John, you seem not to like Littlefinger. Do you think that this is a sign that he's coming to an end?
This is the beginning of the end for Littlefinger. His plans are just not working. I mean, I think the reason he wanted to help take back the North was so he can get the North to come with him south, and they're not going south. They're staying north. So I think his plan is going up. I think Bran knows what he did, and I think he knows what he's up to. And I think the reason Bran is so cold to Mira and to everyone is because I think he saw the future and he knows one of his family members is dying, so he doesn't want to get emotionally involved. So that's why he's being so cold.
Awesome. Andrea, question for you, my darling. How about the callback and how awesome Chaos is a Ladder?
It was beautiful. The whole entire thing. If you'd like, I can kind of run it through with you guys really fast. The whole scene with Chaos as a Ladder was a conversation that was happening between Varys and Littlefinger, and they were talking about the Iron Throne. And Littlefinger asked Varys, "Do you know what the realm is? It's the 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. It's the story we agreed to tell ourselves over and over until we forget that it's a lie." And then Varys asked him, "But what do we have once we abandon the lie? Chaos, a gaping pit waiting to swallow us all." Littlefinger responds, "Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder. Many who try to climb it fail, never to try again. The fall breaks them. And some are given a chance to climb, but they refuse. They cling to the realm, or the gods, or love, illusions. Only the ladder is real. The climb is all there is," which is really interesting for me because a lot of this stuff is really relevant to what's been going on the whole entire time we've been watching Game of Thrones. The 1,000 blades of Aegon's enemies. Well, it's supposed to be more than that, but Littlefinger is saying it's less. So this is a story that's been hyped up, and then we've been telling ourselves stories this whole entire time, so many times that we forgot that they're lies. Well, the lies that we've been telling, or at least the Maesters have been telling, is the White Walkers aren't real. The Children of the Forest aren't real. The giants aren't real. There is no magic. There is no this. There's dragons were killed by men, not by Maesters. Don't ask questions. Don't do this. So everything that's the truth we think is a lie, and everything that we think is the truth is actually a lie. So that's another point right there. And then those who try to climb it fail, never to try again. The fall breaks them. That's a specific reference to Bran falling from that tower. Some are given the chance to climb, but they refuse. Ned, who refused to take the Iron Throne. They cling to the realm, Jon, or the gods, Ned, or love, Sansa, or Cat, illusions, Arya. The latter is real, only the climb is all there is. So it was really fitting for it to come up there because it's so Stark centric. I really love that that Bran put it back in his face. As in regards to the dagger specifically, he said, "Do you know who this belonged to?" And he goes, "Someone rich," which was interesting because we did see it for the very first time in the book, right there in episode 1 with Sam, which we didn't know at the time that it was a Targaryen-owned dagger. We only knew that it was Valyrian steel. There are many Valyrian steel weapons in the Seven Kingdoms that have never belonged to House Targaryen. So I felt like it was really interesting having him ask, "Do you know who it belongs to?" It was a reference like Bran actually knew where it came from, and it has more to do with just the fact that it was meant to try to kill Bran. So I agree with Trin. The fact that he didn't give a name does make it makes more sense that he would give it to Arya, because Arya, she's not no one. She's not ready to be no one. She's somebody else. And I think that that's a huge distinction between Arya and no one, meaning the faceless men. Arya chose her name at the very end. She's not ready to be no one. She's ready to be somebody else. But he gave it to Arya because it has a part in the end game. And I think it's more than just revenge for House Stark, or retribution for what was done. I think that dagger is going to play a part in the long game aside from Littlefinger.
All right, excellent points. Sorry, the podcast recording just froze. But that's okay, because we do a backup recording. All right, what do we got for chat room comments? Trin?
All right. And Peter says, Jon actually thinks another Stark will die, ? I think he's asking you, Jon, you think another Stark will die?
I think if Bran can see in the future, I think he sees someone that he knows is going to die. Maybe it's Stark, I don't know, but I think that explains why he's so cold. He just doesn't want to get emotionally involved anymore. And he's also Three-Eyed Raven, but I mean, maybe that could be why he's so cold.
Okay. And then Ginger asks, is it true that Dany is Jon's aunt? Yes. As far as the show is concerned, as far as all of the information the show has given us, it has alluded to, well, we actually don't know in the show specifically. They haven't come out and said Rhaegar is Jon's father, but they have very heavily alluded to that. Now, there are some theories in the books that maybe spread that out, and you've got some variations of how they're related. But as far as the show goes, for casual watchers, they want them to believe that Jon is Dany's nephew. And I think that's all the comments for this section.
Okay. Awesome sauce. Let's move on. We're going to go to Dragonstone. Yes, indeed. Convenient Westerosi wall history lesson. This was an amazing scene, and I got to say, Andre did a phenomenal job on the wall carvings in a post on our Facebook. And I don't know if it's on the website or not yet, but when Andre can share it, that was just amazing. But first, let's go to Yardley and find out what's going on with the bending of the knee, the insistence.
I mean, I think the insistence is kind of Daenerys is being just as prideful as she's accusing Jon of. I feel like Jon is kind of in a good spot, within himself. And I think that this trip down to see Daenerys in some type of a way is probably doing him good to kind of be away from everybody. But I thought the scene in the cave was pretty cool, but it's just kind of creepy to me. I mean, brother and sister do it, everybody's repulsed, but the same people kind of want an aunt and a nephew to bang, and it's very uncomfortable for me to talk about this.
Oh, I think we lost you there for a second.
Oh, did you lose me?
Yeah, just for a second, but that's cool. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting things happening here, and this was an amazing scene. I have to agree. All of the drawings on the walls and just the Dragonstone, it was very cool. Although I was thinking the music is really what got me in the mood of that scene when he first walks in and he's holding up the torch. That was really cool. I also thought it was nice that these two characters are actually talking and they're walking on the beach together. I thought that was nice. I thought they were going to kiss. I was a little
They
disappointed
love long
about
walks on the beach.
that. Yeah. Well, Trent, go on and talk about some of that intimacy because he's a
Right?
master of the caves.
I thought that was a little funny, like kind of cliche. They have this walk on the beach, and that's supposed to build our sexual tension between them, it's really hard to read. I did feel it once they were in the cave. I did feel that there was like some heavy sexual tension between them. And a lot of other people that I've been listening to and in the community and stuff have said it was either one way or another. It's very black and white, this scene for people. They're like, I didn't see anything, or this was super heavy sexual tension. And we talked about this on Sunday. This whole cave intimacy thing with John repeated over because he had it with Ygritte, and now he's got it with Dany. Of course, John wanted to see a big sex scene that we didn't get, which we're glad for. That would have been too much too soon. But he did touch her. Jon Snow did touch Dany and sort of move her, like guiding her through the cave, is like, come look at this and look at this. And I thought it was very tender and it was a good build. I do want to see their relationship build, but I don't want to see it just poof, like happen. That would be bad writing, in my opinion. As far as the storytelling goes, we have these huge, long, drawn-out backstories for these characters. They need to have somewhat of a lengthy relationship before they just jump in the sack. But I'm looking forward to them hooking up. So.
Yeah, the touching of the arm part really stood out to me as well when he grabbed her arm and he led her into the deeper recesses of the cave, and he's like, look at all of this look at all this history. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. John,
Yes.
your turn, pal. What do you think?
I found it interesting that the Children of Force was there with the first man. I mean, that's pretty far away. I mean, that was awesome. I mean, they're falling for each other. It's a matter of time. I just can't wait. I wish they would have like had a kiss or something, in that cave. I wish they'd have sex because this time John actually knows. He didn't know nothing before. Now he knows.
Oh, he knew.
He knew.
Yeah.
But I'm just,
You get so excited when it comes to
But,
sex scenes, like
I mean-
between you're like, oh, sex scene, oh, gotta happen, gotta have it. Oh,
Yeah, these are. I've been one of these two to get together for years. So I mean, I don't blame Dany for wanting to get the North on her side. She needs allies, and it's very smart to get the North on her side because Cersei can't even go into the North because you're gonna lose. And they have the Veil too, so there's that. And I think this whole Ben and Eve thing, the compromise is gonna be marriage. Is eventually this season someone is gonna say that marriage is gonna happen.
okay, alrighty. Andrea, your thoughts?
You really want to do this? I think that there was a lot of significance in this scene. First and foremost, nobody actually really got to see the dragon glass. It was pretty dark when he first went in there, and then the light only did so much to help with it. So I did lighten some images. If you're interested in actually seeing what the cave looked like, please go check out the Behind the Iron Throne Club B-Tip page, because I have a lot of images from this episode specifically right there on that page. In fact, I have like over 1,200 stilled shots specifically from this episode of only 54 minutes. But there was a few different things. First, Jon led Daenerys into the cave with the torch. He lit the torch and he lit up the cavern. And then Daenerys led Jon into the sub cave, which had all the pictures of the the histories of the Children of the Forest. So there's like a give and take. She leads, he leads, he leads, she leads. He let her kind of see things for themselves, and then he kind of was holding the torch, and then he passed the torch so she could illuminate herself. And shout out to Karsha. She actually pointed this out to me on the page, so I wanted to make sure that I gave her credit for that. But overall, I asked myself last Thursday before the leak happened,
If I were Daenerys and I was looking at, these ancient carvings for the very first time, everyone's seen them except for Daenerys at this point, right? This is all very new to her. If I were Daenerys and I was looking at these carvings, what would I see? And the first thing that stuck out to me was the fact that one of them looks like a sun and the other one looks like the funeral pyre for Khal Drogo, which has always been mentioned as a parallel this whole entire time. So I was wondering how it would play out for Daenerys. And so I said this to Gisela on Thursday night when we were talking on the phone, that I think that Daenerys might see it as her sun and stars. And so I started really like playing with the idea of how Jon could be her sun and stars, because I've always kind of thought that Jon would be like the equivalent of Khal Drogo come again for some weird reason. Mostly because there's like this history between the Dothraki and the First Men and them crossing this, the land bridge from the Dothraki Sea. So I was kind of trying to figure out how this worked out with the Northern and then the Dothraki. And it occurred to me that she would see her sun and stars. And I wanted to really go ahead and do it justice once I actually got that confirmation in the scene. And so I went back and I found out that everything that's in that cave is a telling of a story that's happened before, but it's also coordinates. They're directions. And if you want to dig into it, it's more than just this golden ratio or phi where everything is being repeated and everything is running at parallels. There are certain parallels, but it's also tied into that story that Doria told Daenerys in season 1 about there being 2 moons in the sky and one traveling too close to the sun and breaking open and birthing 1,000 dragons. Daenerys is literally living these things right now as we're going through the season. She was the very first dragon. Drogo gave her his heat. She birthed 3 dragons, and from those 3 dragons, being literal, will be more dragons. And Daenerys is the first dragon after Rhaegar that's been born. So 1,000 dragons may come forth from her womb. You never know. So there's a lot of things that are going on with that cave. I really liked the subtle details. I do think that there is this coming together of Jon and Daenerys. And as far as him bending the knee to her, I don't think that he bent the knee to her. I think that she proved yet again that she's unwilling or she's unable to see the bigger picture in the situation. He's telling her that we need to fight together if we're going to survive. She's saying, I'll fight for you, Jon. I'll fight in the North if you bend the knee for me. Okay, well, you're talking about saving the North. You're not talking about saving the world. And that's what this is really about. If you don't come north, my people are going to be basically murdered, and we're going to be added to the ranks of the army of the dead. And then we're coming south for you. So then you have no choice but to fight. So you can fight it early on, or you can fight it later on when it's going to be too overwhelming for you to address. And until Daenerys is actually able to see that this is bigger than just that damn chair that she's so obsessed with, that he can't bend the knee to her. She's not ready to lead a whole people, only a part of a people. You know what I mean? So there's still this division between the two of them. I do think that he has a strong connection to her, and she has a strong connection to him. Their lives have been paralleled. Jon Egret said to Jon, "Remember the cave? We should have never left the cave." And Jon said, "We'll go back." And she goes, "You know nothing, Jon Snow." But then Jon was back in the cave with a woman who wasn't kissed by fire, but is made of fire. And it's kind of like history repeating itself over and over and over again. So there are a lot of great things. And the very last scene on the beach where she asked Jon for his advice, and he told her, the people who follow you believe that, basically that you made impossible things happen, and that maybe you can continue to make more impossible things happen. And it was like a conversation between Daenerys and Theon and Yara in the end of last season. And then also when Tormund told Jon that the people think he's a god, people follow them because they made something impossible happen. And it was a good reminder of what Daenerys's oath was before she came to Westeros, that she planned on leaving it better than she got it. So I liked it. I thought it was great.
Excellent. All right, Trin, give me some of them comments from the B-Tit Army.
All right, so we've got Amanda who asks, Quaith said you must go north to go south, right? Mm-hmm. Andre, you want to answer that one?
She did. She said, you must go north in order to go south. In order to go forward, you must go back. To touch the light, you must pass beneath the shadow. For argument's sake, that's book canon, not show canon. So out of respect for my co-host, we've been trying to keep book canon and show canon a little bit separately right now during the main season.
Well, what did she
because
say in the show? I thought she said those.
She
that in
didn't
the
say
show as
anything.
well.
No, she didn't
She didn't
say
say
those
that in the
things.
show. She just talked to Jorah in the show and told him, "Do you plan on betraying her again?" And he said no. And then she told him where the dragons were, basically.
Yeah.
That was the extent of Quaith's influence in the series. But in the books, yes. And I actually do have information on that, Amanda. If you want to get with me after the show, anytime, feel free to message me or comment on the Club BTIT page, and we can go over it. There have been a lot of these things that have been done, but that's a after show kind of question.
Speaking of which, if enough people want to, and Audrey has time, you could do a after show, a late night with the Mistress of Whispers. It's always a good time. Go ahead, Trent. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good. Lord Bag says the only knee John is gonna bend is when he bends Danny's brat ass over his knee, smacks her on the ass, have her call him daddy, and make her like it.
Oh,
I
Gold
will
Star.
say that I think that the bend the knee thing is a foreshadowing for him actually bending the knee as a marriage proposal, not necessarily as a I'm giving up my title for you. I think that he may eventually be interested in, saying, you know what, fine, if you fight for me, I mean, if you fight for us, then you can have it. I don't care. All that really matters, I might not even live through this whole entire thing. The only thing that matters is, that you fight. But I think ultimately it'll result in him bending the knee in a proposal of marriage.
Excellent point. I like that comment too. Gold Star.
Let's see. Oh, Gisela says she would love it though. She's had her share of rough lovin'.
Indeed.
talking about the spanking. All right, so Paula asks, imagine if Mira gets home and we get a scene where Howland Reed is on his deathbed and he tells her about John's parentage. So she goes all the way back to Winterfell to relay the message, only for Bran to tell John anyway, just as she gets there. Mira then proceeds to put her foot up Bran's ass and turn it sideways. I just thought that was worth reading.
Definitely worth reading. And, it got me reminding that we missed talking about Mira in the last section, because I felt bad for her when she said that you died in the cave, Bran. She obviously had some type of feeling for him. They spent a lot of time together. And, Bran has gotten to this whole new level of existence. He's like Dr. Manhattan. And he's got a very, he's got all these powers and abilities now, and he has a huge responsibility. So maybe he doesn't have time for those kind of shenanigans. But I did feel for her.
Yeah, man. I know I did. She was a sweetie. She really did want to stay, but Bran kind of messed that up. And something else that I thought was interesting, and we brought this up on the Behind the Iron Throne Master of Whispers page. I asked people, did they think Mira was going to be coming back? I personally don't think so. I don't think that they're going to do the Howland Reed thing. It's a duplication of services. I mean, between Sam and Bran, John's going to find out who his parents are. So I don't know if they really necessarily have to go there. So I'm leaning more towards the side of that's it for the Reeds.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it would be cool as shit to get to see Greywater Watch because it's a floating castle, and that would be awesome. But I agree. We're not going to see it, and we probably are not going to see Mira again, and I really don't think that we'll see Howland.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But it would definitely be cool to see the frog spears or whatever they have. I am a little disappointed, but we don't have enough time. However, I will say that I'm curious what you think about this, John, because Bran, being the seer and knower of all things, I mean, he could basically just walk up to everybody and say, yeah, you guys are going to get married. You two die in a couple days. And you over there, it doesn't matter what the fuck you do because you got the clap. And hey, I saw what you did over there. That was wrong, what you did in that guy's bedpan. That was disgusting. And no fucks given. He gives no fucks.
Yeah, he's cold, but I think it has to be to fight the Night's King. But I think we can see the Reeds again. I think we got to see Howland Reed. I mean, we got all the major lords at Winterfell. We got the Manderleys. We got the we got the I can't remember all the things right now, but we got all the lords right now. Gullivers, Manderleys, Karstarks, you know, they're all there, but there's no Howland Reed. So like I got a feeling that we might see Howland Reed again either this season or maybe next season. But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see the Reeds again.
All right, awesome. Andrea, any closing thoughts on good old Mira Reed?
I don't think this is the end for Mira. I mean, if just looking at history in general, how many times have you seen a character walk off the screen and never come back without dying? It just doesn't make any sense to me. There has to be a close of that plot line. And then also the fact that House Reed is a northern house. At some point, they're going to be involved in this war moving forward, and they may end up having to go to Winterfell themselves. Mira is important. I don't care what anybody says. There's a reason why she's lived this long. And it wasn't just to carry Bran around. There's a reason why she's not dying when she's walking out of those gates. You know, there's something else going on with her completely. And I don't know what that means specifically, but Mira is a big point of all this. Everything about Bran, though, on the other hand, and you guys always give me shit about this because everyone feels the same about him. He's a 16-year-old boy, and your memories are what define you. They're what make you who you are as a person. And Bran right now has been subjected to all kinds of trauma his whole entire life. The only thing he's known outside of his own family is the wilderness and then the three-eyed raven. And now he has to fit every single memory, every single past, present, and future thing that could possibly happen, any outcome that would happen from any of these possible outcomes, into his one little 16-year-old mind. So there's not really a lot left of Bran inside of that brain. Everything that is left of Bran is being suppressed. It's being hidden all the way down at the bottom. And everything else that's more important is coming to the very top. So I understand what Bran is saying. He's not really him. When he woke up out of that coma, it was Summer who kept him alive. Every single time they closed that window, Bran would weaken. Every time they opened it back up, he'd get his strength. When Summer died, Bran died too. Summer died and winter came. And that was really the whole point of the significance of Bran having a direwolf named Summer. And winter is coming, and there's more to it, and Bran is the center of that. And Mira, I mean, it sucks for Mira, and I at this point, I agree with Yardley from on Sunday. It becomes abundantly obvious that Mira began to love him. You know what I mean? And he loved her in the books, but Mira began to love him in the show. And this was like really confirmation for her that he's just not the same boy anymore. And it breaks my heart for her. It really does. But at the same time, you would think that Mira, of every single person who's encountering Bran at this point in time, would understand exactly what it is that Bran is going through. I can understand Sansa's shock, or even Arya, or Jon's shock for that matter. But Mira, the one who's been with him, his constant this whole entire time, you would think that she would have a better understanding of who Bran is at this point versus who Bran was when she met him.
Yardley, had a follow-up?
Yeah, and I was going to say, I can definitely agree that if we see the Reeds again, it will be in a battle type scenario, or we'll run across them in the battle to keep the White Walkers away. But I don't think that a lot of people think that it'll be Howland Reed that reveals it. When you've got Littlefinger and Sam, I just think that window's too wide open. So I don't think that they need Howland Reed for that. But I think we could see Howland Reed, but I don't think it'll be him that reveals it to Jon. I think it'll be people that he knew, like Sam and his brother.
I agree 100%.
Do you think we could get Brando at least tell us what the hell happened to Syrio Farrell so we can put that behind
absolutely.
us? Okay, so I'm glad we were able to get to that. Do we have any comments about Mira in the chat that we should bring into the show?
Yeah, Gisela says the farther Mira is from the Night's King, the better for her and Bran. He cares for her, and she would be a distraction, and that's got a lot of merit to it. And then Peter says, I don't know if the Northern Lords just believe Bran's vision. I think we got introduced to that when Bran showed up at the wall, and he was like, I know this, and I know this, and I know this about you. So if he needed to prove it, he could prove his visions are real to people. He did it with Sansa. Mm-hmm.
Does anybody actually think that Sansa's sharing these things with everybody else? I mean, how many people in Winterfell do you actually think know the fact that Bran is having visions? I mean, don't you think that's a weapon that they should be keeping to themselves?
I think Sansa absolutely is smart enough to keep that to herself after everything she's learned. I do. I don't think she's telling people, except for Arya, because Arya is part of the family and important, and there was a lot to explain with that whole "I saw you,"
Yeah.
So but I do think that she would keep that. I think that's when I think she doesn't want to give away her cards or her hand at all.
Excellent point. I don't think she's telling either. I mean, Littlefinger is bad enough having him know. And I think that wasn't her doing either.
I don't even think he knows. I think he suspects. I really feel like that's why he was so shook when Bran said chaos is a ladder to him. He was just like, hold up, that's something I've only ever said to one person. As far as I know, you've never been in front of Varys, you know? So, I think that Littlefinger, that was just kind of like I know something about you and you don't know how I know it kind of situation. But I liked seeing Littlefinger so shook. So I don't think that anybody else knows as far as the Northern Lords go, other than like Dolores Ed and the men that were standing there. And I think it's important that Bran gives them enough information to know that he knows, but not everything to know that he know where he knows it from.
I did want to mention that just to follow your comment about Mira and Howland and them. History seems to repeat itself a lot in Westeros. Like we'll see Field of Fire 1 and then Field of Fire 2 sort of things. And a lot of things parallel and repeat themselves. And thinking about the history of Howland Reed and Ned Stark, we don't know of their relationship, how their relationship was. They didn't really see each other after the Tower of Joy. I mean, they were always loyal to House Stark, but as far as they didn't come up and visit or do anything like that, Bran didn't even know, like he knew that the Reeds were down where they were in Greywater Watch, but he didn't really know anything about them. He had never met the Reed children. So their relationship wasn't all that tight. So I kind of believe that Howland Reed and Ned never saw each other again, and Ned died. So I'm thinking that Mira and Bran are probably never going to see each other again because they were battle buddies the same way Howland and Ned were.
And also to a point that Jonathan had brought up a little earlier when he was discussing how all the lords and things were in Winterfell, to piggyback off of what you said, Trin, if that was more likely, why in the hell wouldn't the Reeds be there? You know what I mean? At some point, you would think that they would have like an emissary or somebody there kind of representing. So, I mean, how could you not be there for that awesome event, with Jon Snow? You know what I mean? I just think that would have been a good time to have done it. But I think that there are just too many factors and too many people to say that we need them. And let's be real. Sometimes in real life, you meet people and you might be close and you never see them again. So that's not something that's unusual. It happens to a lot of people. So it's very cool. It'll be cool to see how it plays out.
Yeah, real life. Okay, so we're going to go back to Dragonstone. Oh, yeah, we're coming out of the cave. Unfortunately, no flippity-flop happened. Nothing magical with the tongue happened. But we do get to see Tyrion and Varys, and they look kind of glum. Now, after they give her the news of what happened at Castle Rock, Dany has a breakdown, and at least in my opinion, is acting kind of like a child. She was reverting back to a more immature state of Dany. Yardley, what are your thoughts on this particular scene?
Sorry, Chris. Guys, am I coming through? Because you broke up. Repeat that. I'm sorry.
We're talking about Dany and how she got all upset when Tyrion basically debriefed her about Castle Rock, and they told her it didn't go quite as they planned.
Oh, yeah. Dany kind of showed a little all over the place bipolarness. She kind of snapped in Jon and Davos. Interestingly enough, when they were saying, hey, we want to remove ourselves from this situation, you guys are talking business, she's like, no, you're staying here. And this is right after a conversation with Missandei saying, hey, if I wanted to get up and leave, she'd just wish me luck. And these guys are just saying, we don't want to be in your business. And she's snapping, trying to keep them there. So I thought that was kind of funny. And I thought Dany kind of bringing up the specter that she thinks that Tyrion is kind of calling weak plays because he doesn't want to run up the score on his family. And I think that that's kind of crazy and not good policy to accuse people that you're relying on of doing things that they aren't, because they may make assumptions about you as well, and it might be detrimental. So I thought that was kind of disrespectful of Dany. Does anybody here think that coming off of that Missandei scene with Jon and Davos, right before that scene, if Tyrion was to say, Dany, you know what, you're right, I'm no good, I want to get out of here. Do you really think that Dany would say, okay, I wish you well, give you a ship, and say, go on?
Nope.
Hell no.
No.
She would
No.
break on Tyrion. So,
Yeah.
like, we keep seeing in the same episode that there are contradictions even to the things that people say that Dany does good things. You can always bring up something that she does that contradicts that, which basically means that people are complex and they can be both ways. But I love how they do that. You know, people have their different interpretations, and in a way, everybody's right.
Indeed.
Train, your
I feel really
thoughts?
bad. I feel really bad for Tyrion here because he was truly trying to do the best thing for Dany's court. He was trying to do the best thing for the civilians. This is his home. Westeros is Tyrion's home. So he's not trying to kill the people of Flea Bottom or to burn everything up. He really does want to preserve it. He loves his homeland. And so him trying to avoid civilian casualties wasn't because he was trying to betray Dany or because he wanted to help the Lannisters. I think he truly was, wanting to preserve his roots there and the lands. And kind of like a Varys, he works for the realm or whatever. But I mean, he does work for Dany. I just think that's really his motive. I don't think that Tyrion's motive is. I don't think it's because he has a soft spot for his brother. I mean, it did affect him later on, and we'll get to that, to see his brother on the battlefield. But I don't think that's his tactical motivation at all, because he was willing to let Casterly Rock go down, and he just that's different though. That's a military force versus civilians. So that's what I think about Tyrion's motives.
John?
I mean, like, Tyrion's plans they're good. He just underestimated his family. He's right to want to win the war without civilian casualties. It'd be very easily just to go right to King's Landing with all of our forces and 3 dragons and just burn the Red Keep to the ground. But then you're ruling out of fear, like Cersei is, instead of the other way. So I see that point. John gave great advice to Dany, but she went after the army instead of civilians. So, I think she proved the point.
Okay. Andre, your thoughts?
It was actually really an interesting scene. Yardley, I want to go back to Sunday. You said that you thought that had she just calmed down enough, she could have at least listened to Tyrion. Tyrion's plan still worked. I agree. But I still think that ultimately that's kind of what she ended up doing, was listening to Tyrion's plan. Her plan was to go and burn down King's Landing and be done with it right then and there, until Jon had to remind her that if she burned cities if she, sacked cities and melted castles with her dragons, that she's just more of the same shit. I think she had no choice but to go back and originally go back to Tyrion's plan, which was lay siege around King's Landing. She basically stopped Jaime from getting any of those supplies into King's Landing, because Tyrion was like, well, now you know the answer. You're not going to go burn cities, so back to my plan. I think that's why Tyrion was there on the battlefield. One was because it was his plan, and two, because if shit went wrong, Tyrion needed to see it, because Daenerys planned on punishing him. And then going back to the comment of, do you really believe she would let you go? It was kind of like Jon asking for confirmation based on the fact that he's a prisoner on that island right now too. Okay, well, how come she would let you go, but she wouldn't let me go, and I'm not an enemy to her? You know what I mean? She wouldn't let Tyrion go if Tyrion was to say, you know what, you're right. I don't want to hurt my brother. I could give a fuck less about my sister, but fuck it, they're my family, and I don't want them dead. I think that she wouldn't let Tyrion go either. She would hold him as a royal hostage, or she would burn him. Not that it would do any good for Tyrion. For Tyrion, because Cersei and Jaime might care, but Cersei wouldn't give a shit. But Daenerys is still holding hostages. She's holding hostages to people who don't want to stand by her side, and that's a really good point that Jon made. And she wouldn't have let Tyrion go either. She wouldn't have let Varys go.
Absolutely. And something that I just wanted to follow up real quickly off of something that you just said, it's the same thing about family. You can talk all the shit that you want about your family, but let another motherfucker start talking shit about them and you're ready to fight. You know what I mean? So
Right?
I kind of feel, Tyrion is in a tough spot, because it's like, you're essentially working for one who is trying to destroy everything you know, and it has to be tough, and it has to be rough because, as we all know, he likes, he definitely loves Jamie. He's always, been at war, so to speak, with Cersei, but that's nothing new. But that's his home, and I don't know how much that I could take going in, destroying my home. I don't think that I would feel good about that. So I don't know, man. It might be a death by 1,000 cuts, but man, if later on in this show, like Tyrion turns on Dany, I'll be floored, but I'll be smiling.
Did you actually gauge, or not gauge, did you actually think that Tyrion weighed or gauged the fact that his favorite person in the whole world is Jamie might be involved on the other side? Like, I know that had to have come up in his mind, but I don't think it really weighed on him the same. Like, I don't think he really weighed that fully.
Yeah, I mean, Jamie's all about family, but it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see.
All about family.
Yeah, he's all about family, but it'll be interesting to see how this plays out because, to be honest, and I'm kind of curious about the panel, I mean, would Tyrion really be wrong if he tried to bow out of it? Even though we know that Dany wouldn't allow it, she'd kill him first. But
yes,
I don't think that he would be wrong. I mean,
you know why? Because why did he leave his home in the first place?
Well, he thought that he was going to get stoinked
by his family.
Yeah, by his dad. I really don't. But I think Tyrion knew. I don't think that Tywin was going to kill Tyrion, though.
Oh, I completely
think he would. I think
he
would.
There's no doubt.
I'm not saying that he wasn't possible of doing it, but I don't know. I don't think that he was going to kill him. I really do think that he was going to take the black or find a way to weasel him out of it. I don't know.
Jamie would have backed that. I think so. Cersei wanted him dead, but I think Jamie would have backed that.
Because if Tywin wanted to kill Tyrion and Jamie, his favorite son, was like, "Yo, you can't do that shit," I don't think Tywin would have did it.
Yeah, wasn't Jamie like, "I'll go back to Casterly Rock if you don't kill him"? Yeah. See, so I think that you're right there. I think he would have been like, no.
I think that in that circumstance that Tywin would have allowed Tyrion to take the black. But when Tyrion opened his mouth, and he says this all the time, one day my mouth is going to get me, and it always gets me into shit, basically. When he opened his mouth and said, "I request a trial by combat," he sealed his own fate with Tywin. Tywin had been looking for a reason to be able to not have to claim Tyrion as his own son, to murder Tyrion without, it being... without being judged by the gods or people harshly. And Tyrion gave him that right then and there when he said, "I ask for a trial by combat." Perfect, done. If you lose, you're dead, and I don't have to worry about people being like, "I murdered my own son." So yeah, I totally see Tywin actually going through with it at that point. Even Jamie knew that if Tyrion lost that trial by combat, he was a lost cause. He knew that Tyrion basically just signed his own death certificate, assuming that nobody would fight for him. And then Oberyn fought for him, and then he got cocky. You know what I mean? So yeah, Tyrion's fate was done. He was going to be sentenced to death no matter what. And I think that Tywin wouldn't have hesitated on any circumstances once the path was created on getting rid of Tyrion in that essence, because Tyrion was literally the bane of his existence, which ironically still makes me really happy because I still think that Tyrion is his one and only child.
We got a lot of people in chat who agree with you guys. Dodie says Tywin would have killed Tyrion. Eric says, Imani says, first of all, Tywin would kill Tyrion. He would just try to construct it in a way that he couldn't be blamed for it or it be traced back to him. And Peter says, I would have felt better if Tyrion responded to the Dothraki dude when he said his people couldn't fight with something like, "They aren't my people anymore." That's deep.
That was the one thing that really got to me, was watching Tyrion's face on that battlefield, seeing that he's realizing what he's actually done, what he's brought to his own country, to his own people. And I think that he still believes in Daenerys, but I also think that he realizes that he's in over his head in this one situation.
All right, you know what? Are there any more comments?
There are a couple of things.
Okay.
People were responding about the Dany, because she was yelling at Tyrion. Eric says Dany is losing it. She's becoming the Mad Queen, seeing many similarities between her and Cersei. I personally don't see that. I think Dany's becoming the conqueror that she wanted to be. But a lot of people agree with you, Eric. So Lisa said Essos and Westeros are two different places. She had too much confidence and underestimated her enemy in Westeros because of what happened in Essos. Now she is actual war with a place where battle has been going on for a long time, and she was panicking. And she made a big move in this episode, though, which is a really good point.
Perfect example, though, like Yardley, you were saying when we were arguing with Jonathan Stonemaw Starklover, is that the tide of change in a war can happen in a blink of an eye. I mean, she came over with the Dothraki, she came over with the Unsullied, she came over with the Greyjoys, she had the backing of Highgarden, she had the Martells, and now her plan is kind of unraveled. And this is what happens in real life. This is not Lord of the Rings fantasy. This is a fantasy that is entwined with the opposite reaction, with the action and opposite reactions of reality. It's a great gray fantasy. I love it.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes another point that you have to make when it comes to fantasy and reality, and when you're talking about war in general, is that a lot of times when people fail, it's a meltdown from within. It's not always your enemy.
Yes.
Sometimes you self-destruct and you become your own worst enemy. So I'm pretty sure going forward, we're going to see a little bit of that. And to piggyback off of you saying, the tides can change. I mean, you just never know what unexpected thing could lead to something being a disaster, you know? So disaster is usually a near miss on a lot of occasions. So, yeah, she's definitely getting schooled, and we'll see how she stays the course or doesn't. But remember, everybody, when we were talking about her making the decision not to just to go crazy and sack King's Landing, one of the reasons why Dany wants Jon to bend the knee is because she wants the North to do the dirty work by going into King's Landing. That's part of her plan. You know what I mean?
She wants to expand her army, of course.
Yeah, so she wants she wants them to do the dirty work.
No, it's not a bad idea.
Instead
Dany's
of
touched in the head.
Yeah, I mean,
If she thinks for 1 minute that the North is going south to freaking go fight in her freaking war for that goddamn chair, she's fucking touched in the head. Jon made it abundantly clear. Listen, there's a bigger threat, and my people aren't fucking going anywhere. They're trying to fight this threat. So if she fucking thinks that the North is going to march south for her, she's fucking touched.
Agreed.
I like that. You want to talk about
Maybe
being
after
touched?
the Northern battle.
I doubt it very much. The Northmen do not fare well in the south.
If you want to talk about being touched, I was touched. Yeah. Okay, I was really touched because despite the fact that I'm more of a Lannister fan or a Targaryen fan than the Stark fan, it was very cool to see Arya come home, and I really enjoyed this scene. And part of the scenes I enjoyed were Arya kicking some ass and showing her moves. Not to mention the fact that the guards at the gate giving her shit. Reminds me of King's Landing. What do you say, Yardley?
Yeah, I guess, there's a lot of things people talk about, like it's potentially, a callback to the first season when Arya was talking to those couple of guards. I thought that was kind of cool. And her reunion with Sansa, it was rewarding, but it was kind of awkward. And it seems like it's kind of crazy what all the chaos that these young ladies have gone through, that they're relatively in positions that they kind of dreamed about when they were younger. Arya always wanted to be able to fight and do the things that the guys did. She didn't want to be a lady. And then now she's calling Sansa, which was highlighted in the crypts, Lady Stark. Granted, Sansa should probably be a queen or something right now, but hey, you got to take what you can get. You know what I mean? So she's doing her thing. And I guess depending on who's living when all of this is over, as happy as we are to see all of these kids together, I don't think a person like Arya, if she survives, if she doesn't get killed by a white or gets killed from her old job, I can't see Winterfell being her home forever. I could totally see her saying, you know what, I know I have a home, but I'm over it and I'm going to go do my own thing.
Trin, your thoughts?
Kind of going along with what Yardley said, it's funny the callbacks this season. I love it. They're calling back so much, especially to season 1. And Arya gets refused or denied at like every single gate she goes to. King's Landing, when she's a little kid trying to get back in. When she goes to the Red Wedding and she's almost about to get back to her home, she gets through the gate and has to turn around. At the bloody gate of the Vale, she goes to find her aunt. Her aunt's dead. She has to turn around. Like a House of Black and White, the House of
Yeah.
Black and White.
Yeah,
They-
Trent, no doubt.
She goes to the House of Black and White at the door, and they're like, "Get out of here!" Like this
Mhm.
poor girl never gets in the door, like, without,
Oh, and
without a fight
remember-
at least.
Remember, she also is the queen of near misses. Like she missed
Yeah.
John all these different
Oh,
times, and then she
right.
missed him this time. So you're right, Trent. You definitely there's a
Yeah.
theme with her
Poor Arya, man.
in late.
Well,
And go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say she definitely eventually always gets in. I don't think that's an issue with Arya not getting into places. She
Right.
always finds a way to get in. I mean,
Well, she didn't
she
get
got
into the
herself
fray.
back into the phrase and murdered Walder
Maybe
Frey
and
and
I'll
all
go
of
back
his
to the
kin.
Vale.
I mean,
Get into the Vale. I don't know.
well, hopefully maybe she'll kill Robin Aaron. So that's I don't know.
Yes.
But I mean, she doesn't always like not get in. She got into the Red Keep in season 1. She got into the House of Black and White after she proved that she was, at whatever she proved. She didn't get into. That's the only place she really didn't get into was the Vale. So maybe she'll go back there too. But yeah, she is the queen of
She
near
gets
misses. Yardley. I agree with
resistance.
that. She misses everybody just before it happens. She even missed Sansa at the damn Vale. And
Mhm.
Sansa came out right after she got there. Like they were like, okay, well, we're leaving. And Sansa was like, Arya was like, she's dead. Let's go.
And the-
but you
the
know
last-
that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Trent.
That's okay. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, but that's kind of a gag in the show that she's the
Right?
queen of near misses. That's just one of the many gags that they use.
What I also wanted to point out was that the last time that Arya and Sansa saw each other was at Ned's beheading, and it was like this super tragic, heavy, deep moment. And the first time they see each other again was done beautifully in front of Ned's statue in the crypts. So I thought that was really cool. I can't take credit for that. I definitely read that somewhere on the internet, but I just thought, wow, that's really awesome. And being a sibling and having a sibling who I sometimes don't see for many years at a time, my brother and I will go years, and having grown up with not dysfunctional, but like that sibling rivalry kind of thing that they had going on, Arya and Sansa. And then for them to get back together, I thought it was strange that they would make that moment so awkward, because it wasn't as touching for me as like the Jon and Sansa or the Bran and Sansa. This was more of like an awkward, like I think you said this last week, Yardley, that there was sort of like a competitive air down there. But I don't know if it was so much like that competitiveness or that the fact that some things never change, and you can really feel that with siblings. We never really got along, but I love you because you're my sister. That sort of a feeling. And then they had that sort of cute interaction that made up for it. Like nothing has changed and we know who we are. And that was really cool.
All right, John, blow your load. Go ahead.
Stark reunion, tearful, crying. I loved it. So emotional. Arya is a badass. She had a great teacher. Notice that she had a great teacher, because Syrio and Jakar are one person. She had a great teacher. And I think she's going to go south to kill Cersei, because I think she's gonna realize Jon needs Dany. And Dany's not gonna go anywhere until she has the throne. So maybe she goes to King's Landing and kills Cersei, maybe wearing someone else's face. So there's that. Littlefinger's fucked. Okay, he's sitting there. He can't do anything to Sansa because Brienne is watching Sansa. Now Arya's coming in and he looks at her. She's a badass warrior, and you also got Jon Snow, who's a protect his family. And oh, by the way, you have Bran, who knows everything that you're going to do. You are fucked. The more Starks are coming, Littlefinger, the more you are fucked. You are dying this season. Okay, you're done. Okay, you miscalculated. You're finished.
Okay. That's your favorite word, my friend. I love you, Lord Dictarian. You are one of my favorites. Andrea, what have you got to say about this particular scene?
Really quick, John, actually, you're a lot of people's favorites. I went back and read the feed from last week, and everyone said, well, the only reason why I listened to this show is for John. So you seem to be a lot of people's favorites.
Aw.
So
There you
yeah,
go,
I thought it
John.
was sweet. I just wanted to make sure I brought that up.
It's nice.
Actually, this reunion isn't something that I actually thought was going to be really tender and sweet, because Arya and Sansa have never had that relationship where they were super tender and close with each other. They were complete opposites. And what I took from the situation is that Sansa's still the exact same person that Arya imagined her to be. She wanted to be a lady. Now Sansa's a lady, but Arya is not the same person that that Sansa thought Arya was going to be. Of course, everyone knew that Arya was wild around the edges, and, she didn't want to conform and be, the female that everyone thought that she was going to be. But Sansa still hasn't grasped that idea of Arya. And so when Arya talks about her list and how long it's gotten, Joffrey was always the first one. She says, "Your list of what?" And she says, "The people I'm going to kill." And then Sansa kind of laughs at her like, "You're just kidding. You can't kill anybody, right?" And so Arya laughs with her like, yeah, it's just a joke. Yeah, no, it's not really a joke. And this is something that Arya's been doing this whole entire season, kind of like laughing with people when they don't believe her, but then stopping really quickly, like, all right, well, if you don't think it's true, then you don't think it's true. So Arya isn't the same person that Sansa expected her to be, and Sansa still doesn't grasp this. And it's not until she's actually out in that yard and watching the scene between Brienne and Arya that she realizes that everyone's acquired a skill since they've been gone. Bran is a three-eyed raven. Arya is a deadly assassin. Jon is now the king of the North and the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, and he has a Valyrian steel sword, and he's fought in the White Walkers. And Sansa's still just fighting all of her battles inside of her mind, which is not a bad thing for Sansa. But that means that Sansa's still predictable. She still has a tell. And all of these people are completely different than what she thought they were going to be. And I think Arya was trying to prove to her, I'm not the same girl, and I'm perfectly capable of protecting myself and basically anybody else at this point. And Sansa has to kind of open her mind to those things before she can actually fully grasp what it is that she has available at her disposal. And Sansa's in a really good place right now. I don't think she knows she's in a really good place, but she has two people in Winterfell right now who can make sure that Sansa doesn't skip a beat. And without either of them, Sansa's kind of left at the mercy of Littlefinger and his schemes and mechanisms. And I just didn't see this as being a very warm homecoming. The second hug that Arya, and Sansa had, it did kind of touch me. I felt like, okay, this one is the genuine hug. Sansa, I felt like, hugged Arya because she felt like she had a duty to hug her, and Arya didn't hug her back. But when Arya did hug her the second time, Arya was saying, "I love you and I forgive you," and there is no hard feelings between the two of us. But I felt like that was more heartfelt than the very first one. And, I think that it'll only grow between the two of them. They'll get a better understanding of each other and, each other's strengths and weaknesses. But Sansa, for the very first time, is back in front of her only living brother and sister. And she has to accept the fact that every single one of them has changed irrevocably. And she's the one that still seems the most the same.
Excellent.
Bran is definitely different, because when Arya goes to give Bran a hug, he doesn't hug her back, and it seemed like the same hug that Sansa got from Bran, because Bran
did hug Arya back.
Did he?
Yeah, he put his arm straight around her, which was more than what he did for Sansa. He kind of lifted his hand and touched her on her side when she hugged him, but with Arya, he actually put his arm around her back.
Okay. I missed that. I'm going to have to watch it 8 more times because I missed that in the 8-9 times I watched it. But he gave Arya the dagger too, which because he sees the future, and we talked about this a little bit on Sunday, he knows she has a list. And I went through and looked at Arya's list and who's left on it. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's Ilyn Payne, Beric, Thoros, the Hound, the Mountain, Cersei, and the Red Woman. Am I missing anybody?
The Hound isn't on it.
Well, right, you're right, because in the House of Black and White, she took him off. They were very specific in relaying that. Okay, so not the Hound, but did I miss anybody else who's still alive who's on the list?
No, you didn't miss anybody, but I do want to follow up, though, that in the House of Black and White, she didn't mention Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, Melisandre. Right. She didn't mention, or Ilyn Payne for that matter, but technically they still are on her list. We haven't heard her reason as to why they're not on her list, but I don't think that they were at the top of her list necessarily.
No, Joffrey was at the top of her list. She mentions that.
Joffrey and Cersei.
Yes. So while Bran never seemed like the warrior type, because if this calls back to the first episode, the first 10 minutes of the first episode of season 1, when Arya steals Bran's archery shot. And we know at that moment that she's a lot more, the only thing I can come up with is more warrior-like. And Bran is not. He struggles with it. And so that was never his destiny, but it has been Arya's destiny. And you see that. And I think that is a really good merger with the whole Bran giving Arya, I'm just a cripple. Well, not really because he's a cripple. Yes, that's a good superficial reason, but it's also because he knows she's the warrior in the family.
That's my all-time favorite scene. That's one of my all-time favorite scenes. Is that whole scene with all the family, the archery lessons, and Ned looking because it establishes what the Starks are.
Exactly. It's our introduction to who they are. Because
if you look at the two scenes, you look at the Lannisters, you look at the Starks. The first thing you see Lannisters are, they're kind of scheming. You know they're up to something, and then when you look at the Starks, it's family. They're all there. They're laughing. They're doing archery, and so that's why I kind of love those scenes, because it establishes what those two things are. So that was good. You have comments?
Yes, we do have comments. We've got John Serbeck asks, Bran asked Littlefinger if he knows who the knife belongs to. Who from Game of Thrones history do you think it belonged to? Could it possess magical powers? Because it was in the book in the Citadel. I don't think we addressed the magic powers, did we, Yardley? Or John or Andrea? The fact that it could possess magical powers?
I don't think that any of the Valyrian steel blades actually possess magical powers, if that makes any sense. With that being said, Valyrian steel is spell forged, and it's done in Dragonfire, and Dragonfire itself is magic. So yes, it would have like magic imbued in it, which is why Valyrian steel can kill the White Walker, for that matter. There's a few things that this Valyrian steel dagger has that other Valyrian steel swords don't have, which is the fact that it has a dragon bone hilt, and it's made of dragon glass on the inside, which means that this is like this dagger technically has 3 properties in it that are pretty freaking significant, and 3s are really important in this situation. If I had to take a wild guess, and this is complete tinfoil with nothing to back it up, I would say that this dagger is the one dagger that needs to be used to kill the Night King, because it's the true death. It has high iron content.
And that's why Bran gave it to Arya.
Well, it could be. I think that there's more reasons that he gave it to Arya specifically, but I think that there is significance in this dagger specifically. If I had to take a shot in the dark and say, do I know who this dagger belongs to? I would say that it belonged to Rhaegar Targaryen. It says in the book that it was Aegon Targaryen. Well, it doesn't say specifically it was Aegon Targaryen's dagger. It just showed it as an example of the fact that Aegon Targaryen specifically, use dragon glass to decorate their daggers and their swords and their weapons and things like that. And this is one such example. But I do believe that if it's a Targaryen blade, and it's not listed amongst all of the, inventory of Valyrian steel blades in the Seven Kingdoms, that this blade was retrieved from a Targaryen specifically. And the only way that Littlefinger was going to be able to retrieve it from Targaryen was if he'd actually met said Targaryen. The only Targaryen that he could have met would have been Rhaegar Targaryen, and I still think that goes back to why why Brandon thinks that Lyanna was kidnapped versus ran away willingly. I think that Littlefinger knows more, and I think that this all plays into that.
So the next question in chat is Brad asks, does the dagger have a name? So, Brad, we did actually talk about this a little bit earlier in the podcast tonight. No, it doesn't have a name that we know of. And let's see. But it was kind of parallel to, neither does, well, never mind. I was going to say Arya is no one, or she, is someone else. So that whole name thing was like a fun thing to think about. And then Eric says, can't Bran just tell Arya that Littlefinger betrayed their father, which had him killed, and then Arya can put the new dagger to good use? Eric, that's possibly something that we might see. And then Joe says, is there any future support from Dorne? Is there any leadership left there? We think that correct me if I'm wrong for the panel, but we think that Dorne is probably pretty much out of the rest of the season.
I do.
Yeah. I think
Save
I
the
think
budget
Dorne's
for
done.
more dragon
Yeah.
stuff.
I actually don't think that because I was looking at the trailer for next week, and there's a Dornish star over Highgarden right in front of the dragon that's there on the painted table. So I don't think that Dorne is out of the equation yet.
Maybe Dorne
Oh,
moves
okay.
into Highgarden means that it's empty.
So we might
Or-
see it next week.
Well, Daenerys'
then-
dragon is flying over Highgarden on the table, so that's why I got the opinion that I have.
Oh, okay.
And then Mama Cheryl says, does Littlefinger not know that Bran can see all past, present, and future? We talked about this a little bit ago, and we believe that he doesn't know, but he got that sort of feeling from that conversation he had with him. And that's all of the, well, I've got some comments. Let's see. Jeremy said it's only Valyrian steel that has no house. It's the only Valyrian steel that has no house. True. And then he said, Bran can't see the future. He says that in this episode, I think. No, I don't think he says that. Andrea, did
No,
he say
he
he can't see the future? Because I
he didn't
thought he
say
had
anything.
visions of the future as well.
He
I
didn't
think
say
he can
anything about
see
the
snippets,
future.
right, Andrew? He can see snippets of things that could potentially lead to certain outcomes in the futures. Because I was kind of looking up this Green Seer thing
Yeah.
today, but I know a lot of people think, like when we saw the Next Dawn trailer where you see the Ravens and they're saying, he sees the Night King, but I don't think that's the future. I think he's seeing that in real time.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I
Jojen
agree.
saw his
That's
own
what you-
death.
Because when
Right.
you warg into an animal, you don't warg into an animal, and you know what I'm saying? I thought it had to be. You have to be able to warg into something that's within your line of sight.
He's a
Right.
warg and a green seer, right?
He's more than a warg and a green seer. He's the three-eyed raven.
Oh yeah.
going back to what Yarly was just saying. Yeah, he can see past, present, and future. The only thing is that he's not seeing a whole picture at this time. He's only
Yeah.
seeing fragments of a picture. So where he could see like me sitting down right here at the computer right now, he can see what I did 10 minutes ago, but he can't see what's going on in the whole entire picture. Why I'm sitting down at the computer, why I was here 10 minutes ago. You know what I mean? He can't see all of that. So with that being said, he may have like fragments of the future, but he doesn't have enough of the future to be able to draw complete ideas of what actually happened. So until he knows more, which is why he has to be, in Winterfell at the Godswood, that's connected to so much of his history specifically, he isn't going to see everything that needs to be seen. He's only seeing what's in the past. The past is already written. The ink is already dry. He can see those things specifically because it's there, said, and done. The future is something that's actively changing. So he has to be able to learn more, and he doesn't know enough yet.
And the last question for this section, why did Dany only bring one dragon to the battle? Are D&D saving dragon budget for future episodes? I think so. Yes.
It's possible.
It's probably very
And
expensive.
we
to
got
do.
like 80 shots of the dragon this episode. So it's been the biggest dragon episode to date.
And not having it look like she's riding on the back of Falcor from
Neverending Story.
Neverending Story is phenomenal. Believe me, gotta love that. All right, so wow, I feel like I haven't talked in like 20 minutes. I
know.
feel like
Where
almost
have you
out
been,
of it.
Chris? Did you leave?
Yeah, I'm like, what happened here? I'm just letting everybody do what they got to do and say what they want to say. All right, so moving right along here, we're going back to Winterfell, and Brienne and Arya having their little sword play, which was absolutely awesome. We got to see some of Arya's skills, and I feel like Arya, and I know that we can't see everything these characters do throughout all the training, and we have to kind of fast forward into now she's some kind of badass. So that training that she did at the House of Black and White really paid off, and of course whatever she learned from Syrio Forel, very cool. I was very excited to see them go at it, and of course any scene I get to see with Arya or Brienne in the same thing, it's like a huge bonus. So Yarly, what are you thinking about this scene?
Interestingly enough, you mentioned Syrio Forel. Pretty much a lot of the stuff that she was doing was all of the stuff that she learned from Syrio in that scene. And my favorite part of the scene was knowing how Brienne is, and we've learned this from her messing with Pod or whatever, is I love how, as the fight went on, Brienne was like, okay, that was kind of cute. But when she gives her that little love tap, like, you better recognize, I love that part. And then
Yes.
Arya recovering from that and, doing her thing. The musical cues were great because it kind of makes your heart start racing, when they bring that music in. So I thought that it was pretty exciting. And I have to say, I really did like it. I didn't know how far they were going to go with it. I didn't know if they were going to kind of play it in a way where, oh man, it might get more serious and it gets even more intense. But I love how they had it as a respectful sparring contest, but everybody had a new level of respect. The last time Arya saw her was with the Hound, and Arya didn't know anything. So evolution is a great thing, and I think more than anything else, I wonder what's Brienne's role gonna be on the show, moving forward. Like, I really can't figure out what they're gonna do with her and Pod. Does everybody here think that they'll end up going north for the fight, farther north for the fight,
I think
or
so.
like, what do you think is going on?
No, I think Brienne she's given an oath to the Stark females, and even if they feel like it's not needed, or obviously Arya can take care of herself, but yeah, I think that she's going to stick around and protect. She's sworn now to Sansa, so she's Sansa's lady, or Sansa's knight.
She's
Anybody
sworn
else?
to both of them.
Well, she actually swore an oath to Sansa in the snow. So.
She would have sworn that same oath to Arya too, except for Arya refused her help in the beginning. I think that she did what she could at that time. She swore to her mother specifically that she would serve both of her daughters, that she would make sure they were both safe. And I think that was something that was shocking for Sansa to hear specifically, because it weakened her position with Littlefinger. Littlefinger, the episode before, had just literally sat there and said to her, she's an impressive woman. I hear she beat the Hound in one-on-one combat. I mean, now you have the fact that Littlefinger knows that Brienne's loyalties are divided between both Arya and Sansa. And Sansa just made it abundantly clear that she had Brienne there to protect her from anybody who would do her harm. And then Arya pops up and she's all, let's practice, and she's better than Brienne. I think that puts a little bit of fear in Sansa, and it also makes her nervous because now Littlefinger knows something about Brienne, her, and Arya that she didn't want him to know. And she has to figure out how she's going to make this all work because, well, Brienne was her safety net. So you can see the wheels in Littlefinger's head turning. She keeps like glancing at him when he's not looking at her because she knows that he's calculating. She knows that he's thinking of something. If anything, Sansa knows how Littlefinger, orchestrates. She doesn't trust him. It's not like she's using him as an advisor because she thinks that he can give her good advice. She's keeping him safe because she's trying to keep an eye on him. But at the same time, it puts her in a precarious situation. So I think that it's definitely something that Sansa needs to keep an eye on, but she learned something new to that day that she didn't know before.
Okay, Trin, did you have something you wanted to mention perhaps about Arya and maybe someone recognizing her from Tywin's?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to
Harrenhal?
start by saying Arya is now sharing John's hairdo. Like, they totally have the same hairdo.
That's a good point.
That's
That is a very good
disturbing.
point.
Which is like she's always looked up to him, and it's funny because I don't think she realizes, because the last time she saw him, he had like the flowing curls and whatnot, and she's got that half ponytail thing pulled back. But yeah, Littlefinger in this particular scene, Littlefinger recognized Arya as Tywin's serving girl from Harrenhal. And I went back and I watched that scene where he comes in and he's talking to Tywin Lannister at Harrenhal. And the one little sentence that I want to read from that was when they were talking about Renly's death and they're trying to broker a deal with House Tyrell and maybe Littlefinger's going to go do it. And he says, "It's my belief that a moment of chaos affords opportunity lost soon after." And I just thought that was like really impactful, and that pulls us right back to where we are right now, because this guy and his chaos schemes, there's so much there. It's really deep, and Um, and then in that same scene with Tywin, and he recognizes Arya because he immediately then brings up Catelyn Stark in front of Arya after he's been gawking at Arya for a few minutes, and he proposes an idea about Catelyn Stark's daughters. So, coming like fast forward to this scene, you know that he knows a little bit of where she's been, not a lot, but like a little bit. So, yeah, that's what I wanted to mention. Throw that out there. Who knows where this is going to go? But I think that Littlefinger and Arya's paths are going to cross in more ways.
The watching Littlefinger staring down below at the two combatants and his lips, the way they were moving, it was almost you could see the gears in his mind turning. There is something going on with this character, and oh boy,
he's scared shitless.
John, are you a believer that Arya is a badass?
Arya is a badass. She had a great teacher, just one, because Jerry Farrell is Jaqen H'ghar. I have to throw it in there all the time. She held her own against Brienne, and Brienne beat like the Hound, and Brienne is badass. So there's that. Brienne is not going anywhere. She's Princess Guard to Sansa and Arya, so she's not going anywhere. And as for Littlefinger, the reason he's moving his mouth because he's realizing that day by day his whatever plan he had is going up in flames. The longer he stays there, the worse it's going to get for him. And I've been saying this for all year. He's dying this season.
Do you really think that Littlefinger is looking down below, thinking to himself that my plan is coming apart? It looks like he's got a new plan coming together the way he's staring at the two.
What was his original plan? He said he saw himself on the Iron Throne with Sansa by his side, right? You're not taking the Iron Throne if you're in the North with the Vale. Like, I mean, I think his whole plan was I'm gonna help Sansa take so his whole plan was simply like give Sansa to the Boltons, knowing what they were, and then he'll come to the rescue with the Vale, beat the Boltons. Sansa's there, get Sansa, get the North back, go over to the South and take back and get the king. He didn't play into the part that Jon was there and that Jon had rallied the wildlings. He didn't take into consideration that, and now that he's there and he's got all the lords on his side to fight the king, his plan is spiraling out of control, because if your plan is to take the Iron Throne, you're in the North. I mean, what's your real plan? So
I see your point.
He's seeing his plan just go up in smoke because he can't get them. I think he wants the North south. He needs to march the North with the Vale south and conquer, like
I don't think he
has
to
with Robert's Rebellion, and it's not going to happen.
I don't think he has to, John. And remember what he said to Sansa in the previous episode, or whatever episode it was. Fight every battle in your mind. Every battle. Everywhere, friends, enemies, foes, put it all in your head. I don't want to get too deep in this because I want to get the show over with sometime tonight, but think about it this way, okay? If the North stays in the North and all that shit happens in the South, and say Dany's victorious and she comes to the North, what better way to take over down South than when everybody's up North fighting the threat for life? He can go sit in the chair, and he got to sit in the chair. Okay, I'm just making it as simple as possible because I want to get to what Andre has to say about Bran and Arya reunion.
There was a lot about this encounter that I thought was important. Really fast, I will say that I agree with you, Chris, and I agree with you, John, but I disagree with you as well. Littlefinger is not scared right now. There is nothing scared about Littlefinger. He doesn't fall off. He continues to adapt. That's what his skill is adaptation. He's fantastic at adapting, and he's always worrying about fucking the High Lord so that he can beat them at their own game. I mean, he said this to Ros in season 1 specifically. So I don't think that he feels like he's beat. Arya fighting Brienne, it wasn't for me something that I felt like would be like, let me get my revenge on her for what she did to the Hound, because if she felt that way, then she would have she would have tried to make sure that he was helped at the end of, that fight between Brienne and the Hound. But at the same time, she just kind of walked away from him. She wasn't totally attached to him. He was on her list. She decided to let him figure out if he's going to live or die, whatever. You know what I mean? She walked away. She gave up. She took him off of her list. She's not mad at Brienne. I think until that very point, she still wanted the Hound dead. For me, the biggest thing is the conversation that Brienne was having with Podrick. Don't do what your enemy expects you to do. Don't go where they lead you. Don't do that. And then Arya, don't fight somebody like her in the first place. So she asked Brienne to, train with her. Brienne thinks that she's the best swordswoman, because she hasn't had anybody who, a female anyways, that would spar with her the way that, Arya was suggesting ever in life. So she's like, you might not want to do it here with me. So let's get you the Master of Arms. And Arya had a really good point. You beat the Hound, not the frickin' Master at Arms. I don't know any Master at Arms who could beat the Hound. Not saying that, the Hound is the best swordsman in all of Westeros, but people were still scared of him all the same, and you beat him. So I want to train with you. And so, Brienne was like, all right, well, I'll take it easy on her. And I think Arya knew that. She played that to her advantage. And so she, quickly, demonstrated that, all right, well, you don't have to take it easy on me. I want you to give me everything, And then it was watching her do the same things that Brienne was telling Pod not to do. Don't go where your partner leads you. Don't do that. Don't do what your partner expects, because at that very end, she dropped her sword on her own. Brienne didn't make her lose it. She dropped her sword on her own, and then she went for the dagger. Brienne grabbed her hand. She switched to her left hand, and she came up with that killing blow right then and there, which is something that everyone should be paying attention to, because there have only been 3 people so far in the show series and the book series who can fight interchangeably with their right and their left hand. One of them is Arthur Dayne, the other one was Qhorin Halfhand, and the other one is Jon Snow. When he burnt his right hand, he had no choice but to learn how to fight with his left hand. And even Jaime is still having problems with his left hand, so he hasn't learned how to fight interchangeably. But Arya, she nailed it. She was able to switch from her right to her left hand and do something that was unexpected for Brienne, and ultimately win that match. And I don't know if anybody else caught on to this, but Beric Dondarrion is actually carrying Dawn right now. It was barely noticed in the very first episode, but it is there. He's carrying Dawn, and if by chance Beric Dondarrion actually dies, the final death, I mean, the chances that Arya could wield Dawn or another Valyrian steel sword, being that she's that skilled in battle, are highly likely. I'm interested in seeing where this goes. It's meant for the one person who is most worthy of it, even in distant relatives. And I don't know how that would tie into Arya specifically, but I think it's coming back specifically, and I think that Arya is going to either end up wielding Dawn or possibly Widow's Wail, given her skill.
Okay, excellent. Trin, what do you got for chat?
Okay, so Jacqueline's asking, did Arya throw Needle or did Brienne knock it from her?
Thrown.
Was it thrown?
Mm-hmm. She discarded it on purpose.
John? Do you think she
I gotta
threw
be
it?
looking back. I kind of think Brienne knocked it out of her hand. It looks like that. I gotta rewatch it though.
Yardley?
Yeah, it looked like Brienne had knocked it out of her hand. And actually, and also the battle was a draw. It was meant to be a draw.
Yeah, it was meant. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, it was a draw.
Okay. All right, and then we've got some comments. Sort of a mixed bag on Brienne, what she's doing. So Dodie said Brienne is not going to go anywhere, I don't think. And where'd it go? Jamie said, so her sacrifice will fulfill her oath in her eyes, talking about Brienne sacrificing herself for whatever comes next. And Armani says, looks like Brienne is no longer needed. And Robert says she will marry Tormund and move back home.
Yes.
That would be so awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. And then Jeremy asks, does anyone think Littlefinger and Varys will meet again? And Yardley, you said they may.
Yeah, I totally think it's possible, but I'm not going to go into why. But
that would be a very interesting meeting.
At this point in the series, with the storyline getting a lot more constricted, they're going to start losing people like Brienne and Tormund and things like that. if the Night's King and the threat is so, is as bad as it's been built up to be, probably 70% of the people that we love on the show should probably be dead when it's all over.
Yeah.
So I don't think that Brienne is off the table. I just really think that when this is over, most of these characters are going to be gone, or the threat was severely, overrated.
I
Yeah.
think people will die fighting the Night's King, but I think you need to save a lot of characters for that battle.
Hopefully just the good ones. Hopefully like they get to go down in glory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the good
Yeah.
ones, not the Lannisters.
Because if you notice a lot, especially in the community and along with us, we all are still holding on to, well, they can't kill such and such. And I like Brienne, but I can totally see in her getting killed. I mean, I'm not saying she's not going to beast mode before she dies, but I can totally see her dying. And I still believe that Tormund is gone. So just on the theme of, in the chat when they were talking about
Yeah.
characters that can't go, I just think that
Sad.
it would be a travesty if some of these big characters don't go, because the threat wouldn't be as real as they were making it out to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Dragonstone, Davos and John talking about Dany, and of course we have Macende's little pitch on why she chose Dany, why they all chose Dany, which I thought was a great conversation that John needed to hear. To hear about Dany in less of the "I'm the queen, hear me roar." Also, Theon arrives, and I thought that things were going to get a little bit more messy. I was a little disappointed that John didn't just haul off and punch him right square in the mouth. Although I say that, but I was kind of happy that he didn't also, because of what he had done for Sansa. We can't, as bad as Theon was, he did go through a lot of bad stuff, and I think saving Sansa kind of redeemed him, in my eyes at least, in a lot of different ways. Yardley, what are your thoughts on this particular scene?
Well, there wasn't much to the scene, but I think that John handled it, I guess, about as diplomatically as he could at the time. And as we mentioned last week, I think that Theon's story, he's definitely got something bigger that's going to happen. But one of the themes is things coming full circle. So at some point, Theon is going to be back at Winterfell for something or another.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. This actually happened
Bran.
the same way that I thought that Theon and John would have acted in their kind of reunion. The way, like, because of who Theon has become and he knows what he's done to the Stark family, he is full of remorse and
Indebted.
yeah, just completely ingratiated to John as he walked up, like, John, like, I'm trying to be a man right now, and he, kind of pulls his chin up a little bit because he's just so embarrassed by his life choices. But I knew John was going to have mercy, but still want to wring his neck. And it played out exactly like that. As far as John and Davos and Missandei are concerned, I thought that was a really, really good foundation being laid. That's one of many scenes that they're laying a really good foundation for democracy coming to Westeros. And Dany's people are there because they chose her. John's people are with him because they chose him. Nobody chose Cersei. So she's not staying on the Iron Throne. We all know that. We all have to come to terms with that. And eventually the wheel will be broken. And I think that Martin in his writing will want to wrap this up in getting rid of the Iron Throne altogether. And that's been forecast in visions and all kinds of stuff that Dany's had and whatnot. But yeah, this was another democracy discussion, and we'll probably have more slight or subtle democracy themed discussions in the future. It's because it's going that direction.
You're up, John.
I agree with everything you said, Trent. I love everything you said. Except for democracy. I don't think democracy is going to Westeros. I think it's going to be broken. I think the wheel, by breaking the wheel, I think it just be kings ruling each kingdom again. I mean, unless that king is going to be chosen by the people, then that's I could see democracy. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. I kind of saw the same thing with Jon and Tyrion. I didn't think Jon was gonna go right to hitting him. I think he's still pissed at him when he's like, only because of Sansa's why I don't do this. So I thought that was awesome.
Okay, Andre, your thoughts?
I think that the idea that there's going to be kings ruling different kingdoms from here on out would be a little bit ridiculous, to be quite honest with you. We've already seen that giving one person power over over a wide variety of people, it's not working at this point. I think that the theme in this whole situation is that chosen is the theme. So just like with Dawn, it's the only longsword that's not passed down from father to son over history. It's only given to people who are worthy of it. I think moving forward, any leaders that are going to be chosen for Westeros are going to be chosen. They're going to be chosen for specific reasons. They're not going to be, the result of a line. For that matter. And I don't necessarily think that the Seven Kingdoms are going to remain one kingdom after this, but I think that would be kind of the point, considering the first long night, people were supposed to come together, and instead they, spread all the way across the world and ended up in different tribes. Valyrians ended up in Valyria, and they, originated in the original empire. So I think that something has to change from this. I think people should unite, but I don't think that there's going to be an elected monarch based off of blood or a father's name or who they were related to later on. I think it's going to be a privilege that was earned. I did really like this scene between Jon and Theon, because I'm glad that Jon didn't humiliate Theon like Theon expected him to do. You could see Theon kind of taken back and like, oh God, this isn't going to end well. But it was such a big change. It was such a big change for Theon from season 1, where he was very mocking towards Jon and very bitter and mean and, just very rude to him. See him actually humbled to Jon, because he finally realized that he's not better, and he's made bad choices and whatnot. But I'm glad that Jon, said, you did something for my sister, so that's the reason why I'm not killing you right now. You know what I mean? Like, he chose a different approach when it came to Theon, and I actually really liked that. But again, going back to Missandei and Jon and the conversation, I like that it put Jon and Daenerys in the same light in different circumstances. Jon was forced to see that Daenerys was chosen by her people because she did amazing things, because she's done amazing things, and she means well, and she has all of the best intentions, and so does Jon. And sometimes those intentions aren't what everyone else thinks are the right choices, but at the time they were the right choices for them. And I think that Missandei did a good job humanizing Daenerys to Jon. And I think this is only going to do more to illuminate their similarities going forward between both of them, versus, them just being stubborn people on two opposite sides, her wanting him to bend the knee, him wanting her to just go and fight the dead, without having to give her anything more than just his word that they're real. I think that it was all essential. And I think that it's only going to help Jon see Daenerys in a different light moving forward.
All right. Any comments from the chat, Trin?
Yeah, Armani said Davos getting cozy with Missandei creeped me out.
He's such a fanboy.
Yeah. Brad says maybe Theon can marry Dany. They both like burning people. Oh, too soon. Dodie says, if anyone has suffered karma, Theon has certainly done. Threefold law in play there. Yeah, I think I mentioned that on Sunday. Poor Theon just getting a lot of it. Jeremy says Martin is against war. He will not end this war with war solving it, which I think is a really good point. Their war is inevitable, but it doesn't solve everything. Ryan says, hey guys, sorry I'm late. Welcome, Ryan.
Yay, Ryan.
And then there's just some warring chat going on. That's all.
Nice. I love when the community chats on their own.
Joe asks, what part will Jorah Mormont play in the future? Yeah, we didn't see him this episode.
I think
he's gonna go look for Dany.
Yeah, I think he's gonna land. He's gonna land on Dany, and he's gonna try to calm her down because she's
on Dany.
Wow.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, Chris.
Yeah, not literally. Not literally. He's going to approach her as a gentleman from a arm's length distance and say, "Hey, how do you do? I see you're
From
getting a
the
little bit
friend
crazy."
zone.
Yeah, from the far friend zone. And I think that she needs his counsel. I think that right now Tyrion looks like he's
That's a really good point.
yeah. I think that she needs him.
Because
Tyrion.
Tyrion was, go ahead. I'm going to take your thunder. Go
It's
for
okay.
it.
You can say it. It's fine.
No. In the trailer, Tyrion and Varys are talking about like just what you said. We need to calm her down. We need to like basically rein her back in, and then Jorah will show up, and that'll be the help, right? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Okay, I guess that's it for the comments. So we'll go right to the Rose Road, the spoils of war, and what we think is the mini Field of Fire 2.0, which I thought was really cool. And Yardley, please
Oh,
set
it's
us
about to
straight.
explode.
What's going on with the gold? High Garden Gold. Let's settle this rumor once and for all. We know where it is. Where is it, Yardley?
Oh yeah, I mean the gold is on lockdown, man. I mean that's what it is. And I'm just going to keep this short because this is definitely an awesome segment. I know we can probably talk about it for a half an hour, but for me, I think if I was Danny and I had a lot of faith in in the Dothraki, and a lot of faith based off of the situation that I knew had happened, I would simply have sent the Dothraki in to go in, attack, and recover the spoils of war. I mean, the Lannister regiment didn't stand a chance. They just fought a battle. They just loaded up food. They were walking back. And the men that they came in and killed were tired stragglers. And Randall Tarley had mentioned flogging them because they were so far behind everyone else. So I think that she had an opportunity to not even put herself or her dragon in danger. You have faith in what the Dothraki can do. And there's no way, I mean, the Dothraki are tough without you being tired as fuck. So if you just worked a 14-hour shift and then you get off and then you have to immediately work another 14-hour shift, you're not going to be at your best. So I thought that they did what they had to do. I thought that it was very splendid direction, for that. And I commend everybody who was involved. And, Jamie did his thing. He showed that he was a little selfless. He was going to die trying to kill Dany and sealing the deal to win the war for his family, the things that he'll do for love. And another callback during that last segment was from the first act when Jamie was saying the more you own, the more it weighs you down. And that kind of became literal at the end of the episode. So, hey, man, it was an A+ sequence. And I think everybody, John, myself, all of you, I think everybody got a little bit of what they wanted to see, So when you can cover all of the bases for everybody, I think that's awesome. So kudos.
I wanted to know what you guys thought about what was going through Jamie's mind, because that's a moment where you have that split-second decision, and he's what's going on. He's got the Field of Fire behind him, and he's seeing, the dragons down on the ground now, and Dany gets off. He makes that decision knowing that it might cost his own life. You know what I mean? But he's willing to go out the hero. He's willing to do. And I don't know if this is because he really truly believes that Daenerys is like her father and he killed her father. So I was thinking about that going, is he trying to save the realm in this? Is he really doing this because he believes in it? What do you guys think?
I think
good point.
Seeing his men burn, because every time they shot Jamie's face, it was like sadness. Like he's like, and I think he realized, listen, dragons changed the ways of war. Like, it used to be you got your armies, you fight your armies in the battlefield. Now a dragon changes all that because you cannot send an army out against Daenerys if she has just the one dragon she sent out. You send all three out against even if you're outnumbered 5-1, you send out 3 dragons. It's in the story. So he saw that and he said, listen, Dany, and he saw Dany. He's like, if I kill Dany, those dragons aren't doing fuck all. So he went, I'm going to kill this Dany, because the dragons are the atom bomb. They're the nuclear warhead of this world. So he's like, I'm gonna try to kill her so the dragons won't have no one. Because if Dany dies, dragons are not going to follow anyone. So she went after him and it didn't work. But I think that's why.
Peter in the chat says Jamie was thinking that if he ended Dany, he ends the war. What did you want to say, Yardley?
Well, it was kind of going back to something that John had said. You know, anytime you lead people, lead other men and women, you feel responsible for those people. And Jamie seeing that going on, you know, that's kind of got to, tug, because these people are a part of your army. And he just mentioned earlier, hey, Randall, don't flog them. They fought well, so he definitely felt a responsibility to kind of, watch his men's back. And I mean, I don't blame him. Jamie has always been built up as this brash guy to do things. And I thought that he was 100% right in doing what he had to do. And real quickly, there was an interview that Nikolaj was in, because they were talking about the very ending. And one of the things that he noted was that Jamie's armor is made of steel and not bronze like the other soldiers.
So is that lighter?
Yeah, it's lighter.
Well, he still only has one arm, so he's going to still be trying to swim. Well, that's true. Maybe Bronn will pull him out. But another thing I noticed about this scene was that I mentioned this on Sunday as well. Varys wasn't around. Varys wasn't in Dragonstone right when they cut away, like when Theon showed up and they cut away. Varys is normally with Tyrion, but he wasn't there on Dragonstone. And he wasn't with Tyrion on the battlefield, Field of Fire, whatever we want to call this. So there has been some suspect of a spy in Dany's court. I think John even mentioned this a couple of episodes ago, that somebody's given away their secrets, because somehow Cersei's 2 steps ahead and she's not that smart. Or, I mean, Jaime's pretty smart, but do we feel like there's possibly a spy in Dany's court, and could it possibly be Varys? John, you said no. You're like shaking your head.
Spy. Again, if you're a spy, you capture Jon Snow traveling with one ship. I mean, if you have a spy and you stand
why would
there
you need to capture him?
Because he's the king of the North. I mean,
she's got him as her prisoner.
No, but you're talking if there's a spy, right? Like for Cersei, is that what you're saying? Then why, if there's nothing more than Cersei wants to get all the kingdoms, you capture Jon Snow. You know what I mean? That's a win, right?
But
and you
he's
deny
protected.
an ally from Daenerys.
Isn't he protected on Dragonstone right now?
No, but what you're saying is that there's a spy that's 2 steps ahead of Dany.
Oh,
so
because they got word that Jon was coming down.
If there's a spy and you think it's Varys, then that spy lets Cersei know that they're sending a raven to Jon Snow to get the North to come over. Why would you even let him land on Dragonstone? Why not just have Euron's fleet just ascend on him? So that I don't see them being. I think it's smart tactics. You knew.
Yeah.
Listen, you know. It's just smart tactics. That there's no spy. They're just smart tactics. I mean, that's all it is.
Andre?
So you're actually admitting and not making excuse for Cersei being awesome, right? Admit it.
It's not Cersei. How's it Cersei?
It's Jaime.
It's Jaime. It's Jaime and Euron. Cersei just saying yes. I'll go when I go to my turn. I'll explain some more, but let everyone else talk.
Andre, you wanted to follow up with that?
I think it's absolutely possible that Varys is a spy, but I also think that he's not trying to spy to damage Daenerys specifically. I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to lull Cersei into a false sense of security. And the reason why I say that is because Qyburn is a wild card in this whole entire situation. The very first time we saw Qyburn, he was at Harrenhal, and Talisa was actually healing him because he was wounded by the mountain. Yet he brought the mountain back to life with no qualms. And the mountain is actually pretty much pledged just as much to Qyburn as he is to Cersei at this point. Now, somehow Varys says, I don't trust people, but I always trust my birds. You know what I mean? He has like this ultimate faith in his birds, yet Qyburn somehow was able to convince them to work for him. Then, it's not like Varys didn't know that there was wildfire underneath King's Landing, the Sept of Baelor, the guild halls, and all over the place. So him actually looking into finding wildfire underneath the Sept of Baelor. It wasn't something that he had to look very hard for specifically. I think it's quite possible that Varys and Qyburn are communicating, and he's giving them just enough information to make Cersei feel like she's secured. I don't think that Varys has his hands completely pulled out of King's Landing by any measure. I think that Qyburn is a wild card in the situation, and yeah, he's feeding into Cersei's ego, and he's giving her all of the tools that she needs in order to defeat her enemies, but he's just playing a role at this point. So yeah, I do think that it's quite possible that Varys could be, giving information. He's not giving all the information, and I don't think we've ever seen Varys be like caught off guard in any moment until this very season when Yara and all them get ambushed, and then Casterly Rock not being properly manned. This is the very first time we've ever seen Varys specifically get caught off guard, and to me that seems a little bit too convenient. Just saying.
John,
Right?
John, how amazing were these battle sequences? I mean, I know that you're really a big fan of that kind of stuff, but seeing Drogon fly overhead in the CG. I mean, I'm watching this, and my heart was racing the entire scene.
The cinematography and everything is beautiful. Even before you see the Dothraki, hearing them, and then you see the little specks, and then the full horde is coming. It was so beautiful. And then the dragon flies overhead, and then they start killing. It was so good. And I mean, Dany kind of won. I mean, even though it was a small force, I think it sent a message to all of Westeros that you can't challenge her on the battlefield. Jaime, if he makes it back to King's Landing not captured, you think Jaime's just going to go to Cersei? If Jaime learns from his mistakes, you think Jaime's going to go to Cersei and be like, okay, let's just send out another army? No, he's going to keep the army in King's Landing. And I think now is a time if Cersei and Jaime, they have to start preparing for a siege. Keep your army in Casterly Rock. And as for food thing, they don't really need that food if you're the Lannisters, because if you're on Greyjoy still control the seas, Euron can ship in food from Essos into King's Landing if you have that much of a powerful fleet. So you have an advantage if you siege. Now, unless Dany unleashes the dragons on King's Landing, then you're fucked. But if she doesn't, and she's trying to be merciful and just does a siege warfare, you have the advantage, because she still doesn't have food, but the Lannisters can get shipped food from Euron, who still controls the seas. But I mean, everything I love about this was awesome. Just amazing battle, and I think Cersei's losing. So, but amazing.
Okay, awesome. Andre, your thoughts on the Field of Fire 2.0?
I just thought it was absolutely fantastic battle. I got so many stilled shots from this scene, and just seeing how everything worked out. I said earlier that with the supply train being blown to bits, everyone was like, she just basically fucked herself and her armies over. But they still had fields that they had to plow and harvested that they had to, take care of. So it's quite possible that there's still more food, but she just got the stuff that was immediately going into King's Landing. I will say that there was a comment earlier about Jaime wanting to end the battle with one swing of his sword. That actually wasn't something that Robert said about Jaime before with Aerys. It was something that Robert said about the man who tried to fight him outside of Summerhall during the rebellion. He thought that he could end the war with one swing of his sword. And then he called Jaime in and he asked Jaime, he was like, who was the first man you killed? What were his last words? And he was like, I don't know. I took his head off, basically. So he was trying to end the battle with one swing of his sword or his spear in that essence. But Jon said the same thing to Samwell in season 4, I think it was, battle at Castle Black. He said that the army will only follow, they'll follow their leader. Without Mance Rayder, they have nobody to hold them together. So I think Jaime was trying to do the same thing in that instance, was kill the leader and, basically watch the army fall apart. Whether he died in battle or not, killing Daenerys, it was a sacrifice well made, I think, in Jaime's mind. So I think he was hoping that if with Daenerys dead, basically the army, her army, would just kind of go apart, because the Dothraki only follow the strong. Basically, they'd have to elect new calls and things like that. They're not going to keep fighting this war. You know what I mean? So I think that was what Jaime was trying to do. It went back more. It just it went back to, yes, what Robert said. Engaging the Dothraki in open battle, but also the thing with Jon and Mance Rayder trying to end it by removing the commander from the lead. The thing that was hardest for me watching was Tyrion seeing his men be slaughtered, his own people, and then the Dothraki saying, your people can't fight. Seeing Tyrion's reaction, like, they're not fighting well in this situation. They don't have people to fight for that they respect, but it was really hard for him. And I just really loved like seeing Drogon in action, and the pictures that you got to see, all of the CGI was absolutely fantastic. And I'm still tripping about that river. I don't know how it got so deep so fast.
Plot hole.
But it was
I
fantastic.
took a picture of
I'll
a map.
post a link.
Yeah, I took a picture of a map. They're right outside of King's Landing because
They're on the Blackwater
Tarly,
Rush.
the Blackwater Rush goes down and the Rose Road comes up right at King's Landing. They meet, so I think they might be right next to Blackwater Bay.
It's like a mini trident if you look at it. It's
But
weird.
Blackwater Bay. But if they're next, like on the Rose Road next to Blackwater Bay, that's a port, so it could be really deep there. Just thoughts.
Possible.
Yardley, did you have a
definitely
follow to that? No? Okay. All right, we have a zillion
Wait, no
zillion
comments. Wait, I got to get John out of here.
Okay, John.
John's
Okay,
got to go to
so-
work. I got to take control of my show again. Everyone's trying to take my control away. John, I'm sorry to see you go. What's
Yeah.
your favorite scene and what's your sword rating and your contact information?
So my favorite scene, I guess, would be the whole Fuel of Fire 2.0, and of course seeing Lannisters burn because I thought that was just amazing scene. So, and of course 5 burning swords out of 5. I mean, nothing could top. I mean, I just can't wait for next episode. So there's that, and you can follow me at Twitter, JohnFury316, Instagram, John50, Facebook, Snapchat, all the stuff. So, yeah. Talk to you guys later. Have
All
a
right,
good
buddy.
show, guys.
Thanks for being on the show.
Bye, John.
See you guys.
Bye, John. Good night.
Go
Good night,
ahead
guys.
and hit
Hey,
us up
later.
with your comments that you have. And anybody that's in the comments section, if you'd like to give us your sword ratings as well, please do so we can read them out before we end the show.
Yes. So Armani says for this scene, are we calling it Field of Fire 2.0 or the Loot Train Battle?
I hate
Which
that
seems-
title.
I know,
I'm so
me
mad
too.
that who fucking names it the Loot Train Battle? Like, seriously, Dan and Dave? I'm still trying to figure out what to call Walder Frey's fucking feast.
The Red Celebration?
No, it wasn't a red celebration, I don't think.
Okay. Red Feast?
It could have been a red celebration. There was blood. I don't know.
Yeah.
But Loot Train, come on. It was the Field of Fire 2.0. Let's just do it.
Yeah. So Armani says, God bless Drogon, which is great. And then we've got, John Serbeck says, Jaime almost changed his name to Dragon Slayer, which would have been an upgrade from Kingslayer. Armani says, day 1, season 1, I actually hated the Dothraki. This episode made me take back every terrible thing I've thought and said about them, which they did a fucking fantastic job with the Dothraki in this. Peter said, Jaime was thinking that if he ended Dany, he would end the war. I think that was read before. And a question, Eric. I read a theory that Qyburn added poison to those arrows on the Scorpion. When the arrow struck Drogon in the shoulder, it was the same way Khal Drogo died from a wound to the shoulder. So was the arrow poisoned, and is there any chance Drogon would die? You guys want to answer this?
Yeah, it's not possible. Dragons in general, their blood is basically fire made flesh. So any type of poison that goes into something that would affect a mortal human being wouldn't affect a dragon because it would just burn right through them. Their blood is too hot. Daenerys even goes down and sees the people with the plague in Meereen in the books because she feels like the things that affect normal people don't affect dragons. And she's right. So I don't think that even if it had been poisoned, it would have mattered much to dragons specifically because their blood burns too hot.
Yardley?
No, I was saying that's kind of interesting if that would be the case.
Oh, the
Under
Khal
ex-
Drogo?
Yeah, I mean it's the festering wound, is you know,
What took him out?
Yeah, but it
you
was-
know, so I think
But it was
cool.
Mary Maz-Dur who made it fester, though. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I think that if Daenerys
No,
had
it's still a
been smart-
parallel, though.
Yeah, I think if Daenerys had been smart, though, she wouldn't have had Mary Maz-Dur touch that wound at all, and it would have gone away by itself. I mean, literally, it was his nipple. You know what I mean? And one of the Unsullied got their fucking nipple cut off, and it didn't matter. You know what I mean? So I think that it was Mary Maz-Dur who actually interfered, which is what actually caused Khal Drogo's death in the first place. Now,
Right.
it is a great parallel. I will say that. I completely agree. It's a fantastic parallel. I just don't think that the poison would matter for a dragon.
So Joe's asking, how many ships does Dany have left? Do we know? Do we have like a count? Like, because we know they're not all gone.
What
but
did
she
Dario?
does-
What did Dario tell her last season? How many would she need? 1,000?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because that's the number of ships that Euron Greyjoy has right now.
Yeah.
Well, the Ironborn had 100 for certain. So she lost. So she has 900 out of that, and however many it took to carry 10,000 Unsullied or 8,000, 6,000 Unsullied to Casterly Rock, and then whatever is left of that is what she has.
Yeah, because it was mentioned that only, what was it, 2 of the ships or whatever, the Greyjoy ships were left or something like that.
yeah, 2 or 3.
so.
Oh, yeah, it's not looking too good on that front right now. But
Yeah. So Dodie says Cersei is canny enough. She would know how Tyrion thinks, talking about Tyrion and Cersei, who's a step ahead. Armani says Qyburn is Varys's creature. That's an interesting take. I like that. Eric says, John, I think the trailer Dany is ordering Jaime and Bronn to bend the knee. Oh, in the trailer, we don't really do like a trailer episode, but in the trailer, she is talking to the people left over or the people in that area, I'm assuming. And let's see. Jeremy says, no way Drogon goes down over poison. No way the show kills off the greatest dragon on that bullshit. Makes no sense. And
Khal Drogo would agree.
yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
he was like the greatest warrior in the first couple
He's
episodes.
Dead as shit.
Yeah. Eric says, I think that was a Reddit theory. I think a dragon will definitely die, but I don't think it's Drogon. And Robert says that's how Qyburn got all of Varys' little birds. Jeremy says, yeah, that one goes down at King's Landing. One goes down to the Night's King, and maybe just one lives on. And Dodie says the dragons can take out Euron's fleet. And then Eric says you have to think that Qyburn knew the arrow might not fully pierce its skin. The reason the poison is a good theory. Yeah, I mean, you'd have to know a lot about dragons to know what could
Well,
affect them and what
and
doesn't
also-
affect them.
I don't think that show canon for these dragons can be totally different. So I'm not, you know what I mean? Like we don't know. It's definitely possible.
Right.
I mean, unless Sam digs up something that says that dragons can't die on the show. I mean, I don't know. I'll say it's kind of, I guess it's open to interpretation, but I think that would be kind of corny for the dragon to go out like that, though.
Jeremy's asking, after Jaime gets captured, will he change sides? I think so, or Tyrion lets him go for letting him go. That's a good like point, because there is sort of like a parallel that would be a good parallel, because everything seems to happen in a balance. Like Jaime lets Tyrion go, and then Tyrion lets Jaime go, that kind of thing, even though they think they might have done bad things. It could happen. I do really believe that Tyrion and Jaime are going to have some contact at some point. I think I mentioned that on another episode, but I don't know that he's going to get captured. I think he might. I don't know if I believe Jaime would get captured.
I'll follow up on that. I mean, we just went through an episode where Jaime tried to kill Dany. Dany accused Tyrion of being a sympathizer. There's absolutely no way that she would let Jaime go. There's just no way. So he's not going to get captured at all.
Right. And then we've got our first sword rating. Dodie says 5 all the way through. Her favorite scene was Brienne and Arya. Nice. And then, let's see. Yeah, it wasn't a natural festering, talking about the wound on Drogo. And our last question is, how did Euron's fleet go from trashing Theon Greyjoy's fleet on the east side and then taking out Unsullied fleet Casterly Rock on the extreme west side so quickly? Because they said so. That's why. Because they
Oh.
said so. They
Well, who
just
says
they,
that Euron was at both locations though? Like
he was.
why?
He took out the Greyjoys when they were taking everybody down to Dorne,
Uh-huh.
and then like 10 minutes later, he's over on the opposite side of the continent.
But they
taking-
didn't show him in that scene. You just saw the ships. So how do we know
That's
that
true.
Euron
He has-
was
he
with
has-
those ships?
He
Well,
has a bigger-
silence.
He has a bigger ship than everyone else.
Yeah, and
His-
it's got
his
those
ship-
wing things.
Yeah, it's much bigger than the other Greyjoy
Yeah.
ships that he had built.
And Dodie says plot armor. That's how. Yeah, it's a. He was using Varys's mermaid tail. You can go wherever. All right, so that's all the questions and comments. If you guys have any other sword ratings, put them in here, and we'll read them once we're done with our sword ratings. And who's going first?
Yardley. What are your sword ratings, buddy, and your favorite scene, and where can people
Oh, okay.
contact you?
Yep, the Rose Road, of course. Bronn shooting Drogon and Jaime almost killing Daenerys. I really became a fan of Jaime Lannister in this episode. I'm going to 5, and I can be followed on Twitter at militant_marker. So I'm going to stick with that.
All right, Trin.
This is really, really difficult, and I don't want to pick a favorite scene because some of the scenes were really long and some of them were a little bit shorter. But I have 2 moments in this that were my favorites, and the moment that Brienne kicks Arya, and Arya does that sort of like ninja jump up and has her needle behind her, like she's ready to just go for it. That was one of my favorite moments. The other favorite moment was the moment Daenerys flies over the Dothraki. That just brilliant, beautiful moment where you hear it first and then you see it coming. And I already told you what it did to me last week. So, so all of my goosebumps were out, all of them. And definitely a 5. I'm still going with my 5. Fantastic episode. If you guys want to follow me on social media at Dovahkiin Trin.
Awesome. I'm going to go next. 4.5, great episode, and I just love the dragon scene. They were great. You can follow me at BehindTheIronThrone.com. Go ahead, Andrea.
I'm actually going to go back down to 4.5 swords this episode. Not because I found anything in it that I didn't like, but because I just know that it was 54 minutes long, and next episode is 69 minutes, and then 71 and 81 minutes. It's just got to get better. I can't go any further than 4.5 stars, but I am going to piggyback off of Cameron. He said last weekend 4 swords and a dagger, and I like that because the dagger's not quite a sword, but it's still just as important. So I'm going to use that. My favorite scene, I think, is no guess to anybody. It's definitely the cave. There was just so much information inside that cave. It's so illuminating, trying to, figuring out or at least understanding what it is we've been seeing since season 1 with these symbols. Super important. And I think for sure that was my favorite scene. I will say, though, that Drogon firing on that ballista was very gratifying for me as well. So you can find me at _Richards all across social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. My Facebook isn't _Richards, but you can find me here at BehindTheIronThrone.com or in Club BTIT. So there's that, and you can also read any of my information that I post, anything that I'm working on, right on the website at BehindTheIronThrone.com under the blogs and theories section. So. It was great being here. I love our fans. You guys are a fantastic community. I love watching you all, interact inside the chat. It's one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen. So if you guys are listening to us on the iTunes store and you haven't been to the live show and you have the opportunity to come and check us out, the community is fantastic. You're the reason why we do all these things. And I can't wait for Sunday.
Awesome. I just want to read something that Goat sent in. This knife was for you. I think we all think that Joffrey was the one that wanted Bran dead back in season 1. What if it was Littlefinger? Littlefinger did kill Joffrey without being there. Another thing about Littlefinger, did he know who Arya was back in season 2? Just throwing it out there. Y'all can run with it. Arya versus Brienne. Keep water dancing, Arya. Who taught you? No one. This might be one of the greatest fights of the show. Did you see Arya was left-handed like she is in the books? Maisie is right-handed. Much respect, girl. back to the knife. Who is it really? It's in the book Sam looked at. How old is that book? Aegon's maybe. Just a thought, guys. Is this the best Thrones show to date? Better than Hardhome? Maybe. Goat gives it 5 swords out of 5.
John Surbeck also in chat gives it 5 swords. He said best episode yet in the entire series. So yeah, the fans are on board with that. By the way, fans, if you guys like what we do and you want to support us, we do have a Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/BTIT. That's BTIT, as in Behind the Iron Throne. We love your support. We're getting extra content up and ready for all of our supporters. So please join us there if you like what we do.
And you can check out everything we do very easily at BehindTheIronThrone.com. We'll see you guys next time for another great adventure of Behind the Iron Throne.